Okay, once more we are recording. This is the Delisted podcast. I'm Connor. With me, as always, is Augustine
Hey, how's it going?
and Jessica.
Hey everyone.
And today we are discussing possibly the spookiest game of the 1990s, Resident Evil.
I mean, is it the spookiest game of the 90s?
I mean,
Spookiest
compared to
game of the
Phantasmagoria,
Yeah, but is it spookier than Silent Hill which was late
I will say
90s?
Silent Hill is probably spookier. That's the one category where I will rank Silent Hill higher, is spookiness.
Spoopy.
I would
Very
say I
spoopy.
would say Silent Hill's easier though. What do
Yeah, I
I wouldn't
can
say that. I
agree
had
with
a
that.
really hard time just controlling Silent Hill. Resident Evil, I could actually move around and see what I was doing. So
I don't know, I'd
I'm
say it
still going
was
to harp on that. I can see what's happening in Resident Evil.
That's your big sticking point, honestly, is the controls and the lack of vision because it's so
And
dark in that
it's
game.
like, okay, so I thought tank controls are like, oh, tank controls are just super awkward. No, Resident Evil's fine. It's just Silent Hill was super awkward. And
All
ditto.
right.
Anyway, we should get some context. Resident Evil released in 1996. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the development, Augustine?
Oh no, wait. First, let's go over our familiarity with the series aside from this first game. So, who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first.
All right.
So, prior to ever playing this game, or just knowing that this was a game in general, I just thought it was a movie, like the series. So, like the ones with Mila Jovovich. I didn't realize it was an actual game till like I want to say maybe like a few years ago. Like it's kind of embarrassing, but I really genuinely thought it was just like an actiony horror movie series before I figured out it was a game. So yeah,
That
that's
that
really my take.
that's unfortunate because those movies are terrible. Even that first one, which is the closest they get aside from the first and the second movie are kind of close to the games as far as like the setting. And then after
Mhm.
that they gave up. They're just like
Any of
screw
the
it.
characters from the games in that movie?
I mean, in the first one, I don't think there's any character from the original series. In the sequels, they start
No,
adding like Leon and Albert Wesker, but they're not the main characters.
they're not. They're just kind of like sprinkled. Either they're sprinkled side characters or sprinkled villains throughout the series
Yeah,
of
like
the
Carlos.
movies.
Carlos, I know for sure is in the third one, and he's friends with Alice. So instead of him being friends with Jill, he's friends with Alice, and it's stupid.
Hmm.
And spoilers, but he dies in that third movie. That movie sucked.
Yeah,
It was also in a desert, which I don't think has been the setting of any RE game at all.
not the.
Are you fine
I
in the
mean, I haven't
desert?
played the other ones. I was gonna say, isn't 4 or 5? Aren't they like
No,
not in a
5 is in
building?
5 is in Africa, but it's never in a desert, and then the 4th game is in Spain.
Well, it's
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
in Europe. It's
In
in a part
Central
of Europe
Europe,
where
it's
everybody speaks Spanish and there's Castellans
okay,
running around.
nobody speaks Spanish in Central Europe. It's all like Hungarian and, other various
They
languages,
just
so
say it's a
no.
rural part of Europe.
That's when they gave up. They could have just said Spain. What's the issue with
I
saying they're
think
in
they were worried
Spain?
Spanish people would be offended. I don't know.
Well, they
Because it
got
seems like
offended because they all have Mexican accents in that game.
Leon's like wandered into the Middle Ages. There's like farmers with pitchforks and torches. It's just nuts.
I don't
Anyway,
know. From what I've heard, rural Spain is kind of like that. Well, anyway,
just
that's RE4. Back to RE1. Connor, you go next. You go next
well,
with your.
my entire experience with the series before now was basically playing RE4 on the GameCube, and like it was the big GameCube exclusive that was only an exclusive for like 6 months. I really love that game. It was very silly, and the thing is, the fourth one was the first one to like have a completely different formula. So like Code Veronica had a slightly different formula, I've been told, but the other ones were very much like the first one until the fourth one was suddenly like a free roaming camera almost. It was behind you all the time instead of the pre-rendered. So I was kind of scared to go back to the earlier ones because everyone made them sound really clunky and bad. But my God, I loved this game. I absolutely loved it, and I'm saying it the how to the podcast that my fiance, she saw how much I loved it, and as an early birthday present, she bought me the remakes of 1, 2, and 3 and 5, 6, and 7 on her PS4. So I have been just marathoning my way through these games. I'm having a wonderful time.
Okay, I'm just telling you that I'm not sure how you'll feel about 5 and 6, but 7 I know you'll enjoy. Since you
Yeah, I'm
like
worried
the
about 5 and 6,
you
but I
you
like 4.
enjoy the exploration and the low ammo kind of deal, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a Metroidvania type of game, you know?
Yeah, 5 and 6 are not that at all. I mean, 4 wasn't really that either, even though you do backtrack a bit,
Yeah, you
but
do backtrack,
there
but you can't go back to previous, like, locations after a certain
you,
point.
yeah, after a certain point you're just sent on a different area, and then the end of the game was on a second disc. Yeah. All right. So as for me, I think my first experience with Resident Evil was in 2000 or 2001 when I don't know who I was visiting at the time, but it was like a family visit or something, and there was an N64 with Resident Evil 2, and I saw
What's the
somebody play it.
N64 version?
Yeah, and the game, which is really impressive technically, it's the full game. They cut out some tracks, I think, and some minor things, and the graphics are worse a little bit, but yeah, it's the full game. Um, but as for the second game, it freaked me out because I saw one of the game over screens where the zombies are eating Leon, and I was scarred for life. And then, my second experience with RE was the first movie, which I saw in 2003, I think. So I was actually too young. I shouldn't have been watching that movie 'cause,
Is
it
that
was
movie
rated
rated
R.
R? It's not
Yeah, it
PG-13?
was rated
It
R.
is rated R,
And
yes.
it's pretty gory. Like, there's, you know that scene, the laser scene in RE4,
Yeah.
Connor?
Oh, not
Oh,
Ari, sorry,
I
but
don't
in the
remember
movie,
laser
yeah.
it's been a long time, I'm in the middle of
okay, there's
RE4
a
right now.
laser scene, and that was explicitly a reference to that first movie. Um,
Mm.
but in the first movie, some dude gets ripped apart by the lasers. They get cut up. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. That was a good special effect, actually. But in general, I hate those movies. And then eventually, I played RE4, like in 2007 on my PS2, and yeah, that version is worse than the any other version of that game aside from the original PC release. And then eventually, I ended up playing most of the rest of the games except for like the spin-offs. But yeah, I've played every mainline Resident Evil.
Well, what counts
And
as a
I
spin-off? Because you were saying, like, Code
Stuff like
Veronica.
Code Veronica is mainline, because it does actually further the story and it does feature the main characters. It's got Claire and Chris in there. But then again, stuff like Revelations also furthers the story and that features main characters, but they're considered spin-offs. So yeah, it gets kind of funky there with the timeline. But definitely spin-offs like Gun Survivor. I've never played that. I didn't play the Game Boy Color game Resident Evil Gaiden where you play as Barry. Not played that yet, and I definitely didn't play Dead Aim or yeah, Dead Aim I have not played.
What
The
about
Outbreak
Umbrella
games are cool.
Chronicles?
Oh yeah, I did play those. I played Umbrella Chronicles on Wii and PS3, and also the Dark Side Chronicles on both Wii and
See, I
PS3.
just found out that the end of Resident Evil Gaiden has, Leon is actually, a parasite in disguise at the end of that game, and it's supposed to lead into Resident Evil 4, but then they changed Resident Evil 4, so
Yeah, they decided it was non-canon, which kind of fits with the title because Gaiden is usually used for non-canon spin-offs, right? In Japan.
except weirdly enough for Ninja Gaiden, which is, like, that's the main series.
Yeah, that's the main series now. I mean, it essentially rebooted, but yeah, you're right.
But now for the
Even the
benefit of
original
our
game was Ninja
listeners, we
Gaiden.
should just say Resident Evil is a very long-running series of horror games. And the general connecting thread for most of the games, not all of them, is that there are zombies in them. And the very first game is about two members of an elite police squad who are stranded in a spooky mansion after they're chased by crazy dogs. And they basically just have to solve puzzles and figure out what's going on just so they can escape the spooky mansion.
Yeah, so as far as development history, we're all aware because we saw the Sweet Home movie that came out in
Yes.
'89.
Not
A
Sweet Home
Is
highly
Alabama. You can make
highly
mistakes.
recommend.
we will talk more about it at the end of the podcast in our little bonus round.
Just skip the first hour, though. You don't need that.
Okay, yeah, that first hour was meh, but once it got going, that shit was crazy. Like that
Yeah,
was
like it did
amazing.
not let up. My
It
God.
did not. That movie went all the way with those special
But apparently
effects.
those effects were new for the video version, you said?
Yeah, they were, some of them, not all of them. There were some reshoots for the home release. Unsure why it had to do with, the guy who plays the hermit in the movie. He was the producer on the film, and he's also a famous director in Japan, and I guess he wanted it done a certain way. It's kind of like a Poltergeist situation. with the
Yeah, like the
director.
crab walk, because nothing spookier than a crab walk.
I suppose not. Yeah, but yeah, this started as Sweet Home was a film that also had a video game adaptation, and they
On the
both came out
NES.
basically at the same time, right?
Yeah, just based off what we were looking up earlier
I mean, like
when
old
watching the
old
movie.
timey game development seemed like it was very very fast because like they would come up with stuff to tie in with like a carnival or to tie in with the movie release.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But this particular game was made by, don't have his name on hand, but he's a famous person involved with development over at Capcom. Like, do you remember what he was involved with? A lot of arcade games, I know that. And eventually he decided he wanted to remake his work on Sweet Home.
Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yeah, Schools and Ghosts is the main thing, right?
Ghouls and
But
Ghosts.
he ended up deciding, hey, so now we have better technology, and I kind of want to do a remake of Sweet Home, but we don't have the rights to, the name or anything. So how about we do, a 3D version of that? And it ends up not being an RPG like that game, but they do maintain the spooky mansion, various monsters, and a squad of people, trying to survive. I'd also say that the Sweet Home video game is pretty well lit, and I'd say the mansion in RE1 is well, it's not really dark at all. Would you guys say it's
Like a
No,
pretty well
circular
lit?
I
area,
could
but
see majority of everything, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty
uh,
well lit mansion.
I liked being able to see compared to Silent Hill.
All right, so the trivia for today is provided via IMDb. And I'm going to take that as it's quite accurate because these are things I've read in various interviews and features throughout the years. But apparently, the reason why the series is known as Resident Evil instead of Biohazard in America is just because Biohazard is a nightmare for trademarking because it's such a generic name, right?
And that's the Japanese title, though. You
Yes.
probably.
Okay.
In Japan, it's called Biohazard, but in America, in other regions, it's known as Resident Evil because Japan, its trademark stuff isn't very. It's a little
Yeah,
bit more lax.
you have to say it the way it says it on the start menu. Resident Evil.
Well, some of the games don't say it at all.
I know. I was so bummed when
Yeah.
like it said it when I started a new game in the remake, and then it didn't say it whenever I loaded. It's like,
Oh,
oh,
and the guy who says it in the remake is the same person who says it for RE4.
oh my
I think
gosh,
it's
I
also
love
he
it.
also says it for RE0, I think.
It tripped me up that he in RE4 he would say four, and then of course he doesn't do that in the original. So I'm just like waiting for him to finish his sentence. It's like, no,
Oh,
that's it.
Resident Evil 4, right? Something like that.
Hmm. Resident Evil.
4.
It's like I get so spooked, and it's like enter the world of survival horror. Start the game. This game actually coined that term, survival horror, even though arguably Alone in the Dark was the first one of those games.
Yeah, and speaking of Alone in the Dark, so Shinji Mikami, who ended up producing a lot of the other titles in the series until he left Capcom post 2006, I believe. Well, he's credited as the creator of Resident Evil, and originally this game was supposed to be a first-person shooter. Even it was even going to include co-op, but due to a combination of technical issues and just not being satisfied with that direction, Shinji Mikami looked at Alone in the Dark, and he liked the fixed camera angles and the general atmosphere, and so they decided to apply that to Resident Evil. Has anybody played Alone in the Dark, the original?
Nope.
No.
I know they made a movie with Christian Slater.
We don't talk about that movie.
God, what
That
is it with
movie.
horror games getting movie adaptations? It seems like they are more likely because like House of the Dead, Silent Hill, Alone in the Dark, Resident Evil. What's up with that?
I mean, it makes sense to me because horror tends to be a very cheap genre to make movies for.
That is
God,
true.
House of the Dead was such a travesty because it's supposed to be like two very well-spoken men in suits fighting zombies, and instead we got like Erica Durance at a rave, and it's going like, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind." The soundtrack.
Well, I wouldn't say they're that well spoken. I mean, some of that dialogue is pretty terrible in those original
Well,
House of
yeah,
the Dead titles. But yeah, not at
you
all
gotta
like
wear
the
a
games.
three-piece suit to fight the dead in House of the Dead.
Yeah, and you have to be one of them needs to be named G because I think G is the only character that's in every game.
And then there was a character named G in Resident Evil 2. And then there was G-Man and Half-Life. What's going on?
Yeah, it's for some reason G is just something that horror game developers like putting in their games. I'm not sure why.
Everyone's favorite letter. All right, so Shinji Mikami though.
Yes, Shinji Mikami, I love a lot of his work. After he left Capcom, he went on to do Vanquish for Platinum Games, and right now his most recent game, I believe, was Evil Within 2. Did anybody play Evil Within?
I'm kind of new to survival horror in general. Like Silent Hill was my first, and Resident Evil was my second.
What about you, Jessica? Did you play Evil Within at all? Either game?
No, like I'm probably in the same boat as Connor. Just Silent Hill and Resident Evil for
Okay,
sure.
so imagine Resident Evil 4, but it's much harder, and there's some minor stealth elements, but you can stealth kill, and that's
Self kill?
basically yeah, you can stealth kill.
Oh, stealth kill. I was like, you
Not
can
so
self
not
kill?
self kill. I mean, you
What
can
would that
I
be?
mean, you can commit suicide by blowing yourself up with a weapon, but or a trap, but you know. But yeah, those games are quite enjoyable. I don't really put them on par with Resident Evil, but the second game did some interesting things. It even has
Mhm.
an optional first-person perspective, which I feel was because Capcom succeeded so well with RE7's switch to first person, so I think that's probably why they added it in later
Mhm.
on. Also, did any of you know that Capcom actually recorded a Japanese dub for Resident Evil 1?
Thought that they
Mm-mm.
specifically didn't do that.
No, no, they did record it, but they thought it was terrible, so they didn't put it in the
Oh
game
my
and
god,
kept
they
it
thought
English
that was
only.
terrible.
Well,
Because we need to bring
obviously
up here at the beginning. We should bring up right now. First of all, the live action cutscenes.
no, no,
Like,
I think first you need to apologize to Silent Hill,
oh yes, because
Connor.
I'm so sorry, Silent Hill, for anything I said about your voice acting. You're
Oh
fine.
my god, I
Everybody just talks
know.
like a person in Silent Hill. It's fine. And then you go to Resident Evil, and Captain Wesker at the very beginning, like his first line is "Stop! Don't open that door." Said
It's so
exactly like that.
bad.
And then Barry, like, I hope this is not Chris's blood when he finds blood.
Connor, I told you that Silent Hill wasn't that bad, and you didn't believe me
Well,
at
the
the
thing is,
time.
Silent Hill is actually still bad. It's just that the acting is fine. The
It came out
gameplay, though,
3 years after RE, and the voice
that's what I
acting was
can't
better.
believe that it's 3 years after RE and it's still so much clunkier than Resident Evil was. Like, I've said this a million times, Konami copied their homework to make Silent Hill because it's just like you can tell exactly what they took from Resident Evil, but they still got an F because they copied it badly.
Your opinion on Silent Hill has gone way down since the last,
Well,
episode.
because I was like, "Oh, this is fun. It's a little clunky, but it's for its time." And then I saw a game from 3 years earlier that was way better, and I'm like, "Oh, so it's not just clunky, but it's for its time. It's just plain old clunky."
I can forgive it because this was an instance of new developers, like inexperienced developers, and they did do something interesting. Like I still remember Silent Hill, and I still remember Resident Evil, but I agree, RE is a better as far as the game goes for the gameplay.
R Resident Evil is less about ooky spooky and more about, like, action, kill the monsters type of thing. Like, they're not
Ki-
Yeah.
supernatural. They
Yeah.
were developed in a laboratory.
Well, that's the thing. With the first game, you don't know for most of the game exactly what's going on at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, which you don't know if it's
I mean,
supernatural. It could have been.
they clearly look like zombies though
No,
Well,
but it
yeah.
could
in
have
that
been
one.
They don't know why they're
supernatural though.
zombies. But
Yeah,
then,
like
like,
in
you
Alone
find
in the
the
Oh,
notes
Dark.
I
from
get what
Yeah.
you're saying.
you see all
Okay.
those notes about researchers, though, even from the beginning. Remember the researcher's
Yeah.
diary, and then he burst through the closet to get you? That was a
Yeah,
joke.
but as somebody who's played other survival horror games, having a little bit more familiarity, there are games that start off like they're going to be about like science gone wrong, and they end up having like Satan at the end or some shit. So that's kind of
Mm.
where the future survival horror goes. They start mixing science with magic, and RE doesn't do that. It's actually never done that.
No.
Even when it seems like it's going to be magic, it turns out no, it's just more of Umbrella or some other company's crazy shit that they've made.
Yeah, I
Like,
didn't
evil
get any.
corporations, much more relatable than evil
Yeah,
magic, I
it
think.
is. I agree.
I didn't get any supernatural. Again, I
Well, I
only
mean, the
played Resident
snake was a
Evil
little
1.
weird. And then,
The
like,
snake.
everything all the puzzles in the mansion, like, none of the puzzles are all that, like, difficult, but they're very
No.
obtuse sometimes. you know?
Yeah,
I would
agreed.
say that the puzzles in this game are fairly easier compared to
Oh my god, that
Silent
freeze
Oh no,
Hill.
puzzle in
Silent
Silent
Hill's
Hill.
crazy. In Silent Hill 3, if you put puzzle to hard difficulty, because it lets you choose easy combat and hard puzzles if you want. One
Mm.
of the final puzzles in the game is you need to actually know some information about Shakespeare's work in order to even finish it or know what the hell you're supposed to do.
Well, what do you have to
Oh,
know? Because I
wow.
mean, maybe
It
you'll learn
has
it.
to do with you need to have read The Tempest to even know what they're talking
I
about.
read it in high school, I barely remember it.
Oh,
Well, that's what I
wow.
mean. Maybe you won't even know that they're referencing The Tempest.
And I'll be lost forever.
Yeah, just imagine that.
I don't want to imagine that. I want to stay away from Silent Hill 3.
Well, don't worry, that's only on the hard difficulty. If you put you can put puzzles to easy and they're not even there
See, I
basically.
feel like the game's mocking me when it lets me set it to easy. Like Resident Evil 2 Remake, when I died too many times, it'd say, "Do you want to change it to easy mode?" And I'd be like, "No, I want to do it on
Look,
hard
this is
mode."
this is what assisted mode does. It automatically locks you onto the zombie's head.
Well, like,
That's
okay,
how
there was
easy
auto
it
aim
is.
in most versions of Resident Evil, the first one, but there wasn't in the American release of the first one. And it goes back to that whole they don't want American kids to rent games and finish them quickly thing. Like even in '96, that was still a concern.
Yeah, because in Japan they have that whole issue against renting video games, right?
So they can make easy short games in Japan and not worry about kids renting them and not buying them because it's illegal to rent the games.
Yeah, they still have issues with that with their with those bars where you can play video games, right?
Yeah.
And they started cracking down on them because game companies wanted royalties or something.
Oh,
Nuts.
wow.
And it's like they still sell like Blu-rays at what they call rental pricing in Japan, which is like it costs a ridiculous amount because you're expected to make it back by renting it out to people. So like Blu-rays aren't thought of as something that you buy for yourself to watch your movie over and
Oh
over again.
yeah, like I've looked at prices for like anime and stuff like that, like box sets over in Japan, and they're way more expensive than in America.
Yeah, that's why they wouldn't include the Japanese audio on a lot of American DVD releases. They were afraid that Japanese people would literally just buy the American versions, have them shipped back to Japan, and it would be cheaper than buying a DVD or Blu-ray in Japan.
Look, they're so expensive that a series selling 2,500 in its first week is considered profitable because they're so expensive. Like
That's
each
nuts.
unit. Like
That's
it's
how all these
crazy.
niche animes can exist.
Yep, exactly. That's why you can have crazy shit that in America people would be like, I ain't fucking buying that. That shit's crazy. And they're in Japan, they're like, no, all the fans paid like 120 for it.
It's nuts. But back to Res Evil. Where are we in our
Well, the so this is a funny trivia thing. Um, as far as the opening cutscene, which is an FMV, and they use
but it's a live
FMV,
action FMV.
yes, live action at the beginning and
So it's
ending of
full
Resident
motion
Evil.
video. They shot real people.
It's in black and white, which you might think is a reference to Night of the Living Dead, right? But it was because it was an attempt at censorship because it was seen as too violent.
So that there wouldn't be like red blood.
Yeah, and so when they did director's cut, Capcom actually promised to put in the uncensored opening scene in color, and then you
Mhm.
bought the game. It was even advertised on the back of the jewel case. And but you bought the game and it's the exact same cutscene in black and white. And it was because of an error. And Capcom was like, "Oh, sorry. Um, sorry about that. We fucked up. So no
Um,
uncensored version." So
Wow.
good job, Capcom.
yeah. And it's like even though Alone in the Dark came before this, it kind of set the standard for what a horror game was like. Like a lot of very derivative games came out after this one.
Yeah, up to the mid 2000s basically.
I didn't feel particularly, like, freaked out in this one compared to Silent Hill. Like, honestly, this was just felt like just find shit and shoot shit, and that was about
No,
it.
I mean, I won't say that I was all that freaked out, but I had a really fun time in this game. And
All
like
right.
they
Mhm.
didn't just have zombies, they threw all sorts of monsters at you. You got
All right.
sharks.
And oh wait. Honor- so let's transition. So story, atmosphere, music for this game.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
So
so
our story,
story, let's set it up. Let's set it up.
it's a
You go
I
ahead.
think
live action footage.
Mhm.
We are told that the Special Tactics and Rescue Squad, or STARS, is investigating cannibal murders on the outskirts of town. And Star's Bravo team went out, and they haven't heard from them in a while. So Star's Alpha team goes out. to investigate, and they find Bravo team's helicopter all wrecked up. And this is live action, so we don't really see the wrecked helicopter. We see like some smoke, and then them going, "Oh no, the helicopter's wrecked," because they don't have money for props. And they
Oh, wait,
find
but
like
Connor, backtrack a little bit. What is stars? What is
I
stars?
I just said, it's the
You
special
just said it.
Oh,
special
you did? Okay, okay.
tactics
I
and
I
rescue
didn't hear
service.
that part. But
Special
they
tactics
are
and rescue service.
okay. One thing I don't know is, are they just part of Raccoon City's police force,
They
or are
seem to
they?
be, because
Because
there's a
I
STARS
read that they
office.
were may have been national, national force apparently.
It made it
Hmm.
seem like they were a special service special team for Raccoon City specifically.
They have an office, the Raccoon City Police Department, in the next game.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they're like the SWAT team, but they didn't want to use SWAT, so they're stars.
Right. I think
Stars
yeah, that might be
instead of
what.
special tactics and weapons, or special weapons and tactics. That's SWAT. Special tactics and weapons would
Mhm.
be STA. It's the STA team. Look out. But yeah. Um. So yeah, they're investigating Bravo team. They find Bravo team's all dead. They find a severed hand attached to one of their guns, and they get attacked by dog monsters. I don't know if they're supposed to be zombie dogs or if they're just supposed to be big scary dogs. They run away. One of them gets just totally killed. He gets killed much more graphically in the Japanese version, I'm told. And the squad all run away. They make it into a derelict mansion in the middle of the woods. And depending, you have a choice at the beginning of which character you're playing as, Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield. And depending on which one you pick, different members of the squad make it into the castle. The mansion.
I
Um,
guess.
and basically, Jill and Chris each have a support character who helps them out in the mansion. Jill has Barry, who's a big, burly, bearded man who has the strangest speaking voice. And then Chris has Rebecca, who's like an 18-year-old girl who, for some reason, is part of this special tactics squad. Uh, who also has a very unusual speaking voice, but she can heal you, so that's cool.
So
And
apparently Rebecca is was a teen genius and she wanted her own lab and that's why she joined up with stars.
but as soon as you go into the mansion, you investigate, and one of the first things you discover is a zombie in the next room over. So there's zombies in the mansion, and then the rest of your squad vanishes. So it's just you and your one support guy against the zombie.
Well, you're not together though. They decide like any good
No.
horror movie, they need to split up.
Just fucking
Like
Yeah,
split up,
like a
which
Scooby Doo
is
episode.
so stupid.
they split up all the time. Well, I mean, with Rebecca, it kind of makes sense because she can't really handle herself. But like,
And yeah, and if you consider Resident Evil 0, she's exhausted from no sleeping for like 2 days.
you got a prequel where she was on an adventure. It's
With
like, honestly, after
yeah.
seeing her in the first game, I find it hard to believe she's capable enough of leading her own Resident Evil adventure.
Well, she's with a they were two main characters in that one and
Mm.
they even work together. So maybe that was what they're going for. Like they agreed with you, Connor. She can't star in her own. I don't know.
Right. And this
Don't
reminded me
know.
like of Phantasmagoria or other like adventure games because a lot of it's about managing your inventory. You have limited slots, you can only carry so many things, and finding the right items to use on the right things to proceed to the next puzzle. Because eventually you find out that there's a shed in the back, and there's four blank I guess spaces on this little plaque outside the shed, and you need to put four crests on there: the moon crest, the wind crest, the sun crest. Gosh, help me. What's the other crest?
Star
Star
Crest?
crest. And you basically have to solve puzzles throughout the mansion to find the different crests and then move on to your next area. And the next area
Yeah.
is kind of like this guardhouse. After that, there's a sewer area. And then finally, you find the secret lab where all is revealed. And you find out that this mansion is not what it appears. It's actually a front for a laboratory, an experimental laboratory that's owned by a pharmaceutical company called Umbrella. And honestly, the first time I even saw a reference to that was when I booted up the PC and it went Umbrella Incorporated on it.
Yeah.
Or
So anybody whose only knowledge is the movies is you don't even see the word umbrella at all till like
you
very
can
much
find a
that's pretty
note
much
that
close to
says,
yeah, but like
yeah, the note just says White Umbrella on it, and it's like, what? In the remake, they
yeah.
changed that to like CEO of Umbrella, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I think it was cooler when it was
All right.
mysterious.
So riddle me this, just based off the first game. Let's not use any knowledge from future games. Okay. So why would a company build a mansion and then build a secret lab underneath? Why not just build the secret lab? and
Well,
then have
obviously it's a cover
no
because they're doing
entrance.
shady shit in their
But they
secret
don't
lab.
they don't need a cover if they're already underground.
Well, people live in the mansion. They've got living quarters there. Did you notice there was like a pinball machine
But the
in one?
mansion was built by the guy who owns the company,
Well, maybe
and he
he wanted.
never
Well,
lived
we
there.
don't know that from the first. We don't know that from the first game. They never tell us about Sir Spencer until like the remake.
I suppose not,
Mhm.
but, like, if you I
Apparently, Sir
mean,
Spencer is the guy that made the mansion, Jessica. That's only in the remake. That's not in the original.
yeah, but just based off the
Oh,
first game,
okay.
I'm still like, they could have built the lab somewhere else.
I don't
I
know.
Anywhere else.
mean,
Apparently, they've got multiple other labs. They've got two labs just in the city, and then they've got one on the outskirts of town, and then I guess that's it. They've got three labs, but still, that's a
No,
lot of labs.
In 0, there's another lab.
Another lab under the mansion?
Hmm. No, not in the mansion, in the woods, in the surrounding woods. It's
God,
like
how
a
many labs
decommissioning
doors do they
center.
need?
Like, they really are like James Bond villains,
They've got
mm,
essentially.
so many secret labs, and all of them have viral outbreaks. None of them, like, I love that. What is it? Dr. Birkin in the second game is just carrying around a bunch of virus samples in one scene. He gets shot and he drops all of them.
To be fair, he was trying to escape, so he got
Well,
all of
yeah, I
his
guess he was
samples.
stealing
So
them.
that makes sense.
mm.
But as
Um,
for the first game, what did we think about the atmosphere, like the horror stuff?
I mean, I liked the atmosphere, but it wasn't ooky spooky like Silent Hill. It was more like
Yeah.
just kind of a really strange house full of like cool art pieces and weird statues and I like the atmosphere, but it's not quite like a horror atmosphere.
I
Yeah, I can agree with that. It felt like yeah, it kinda did feel like a little bit like Phantasmagoria, just kinda like exploring different rooms. Nothing is particularly scary, but
One thing I
except this
really
time
liked,
you get to just fucking, like, shoot things, which is
I'd
yeah,
pretty
say
that's
cool.
that's satisfying. One thing I really really liked was that as you went through the mansion, there was like girly posters up, and there was a pinball machine. And there's like you got the feeling that like the people that worked for Umbrella were like actual people who like needed stuff to entertain themselves when they worked in this like deserted outpost lab. And you got
Mhm.
the feeling like this had been just like a real place where people worked before there was the viral outbreak.
Right.
And it's more so in the remake because you see they had an arm wrestling contest at one point. But like they've got
Mm.
a bar, they've got all sorts of stuff.
they've
Uh,
got a cemetery.
oh yeah,
Well, that's
I
in the
don't,
remake though, but
I
it was
don't think
supposed to
anyone's
be in
really
the original
buried there.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was just them. Like the remake kind of messes with you; it moves stuff around. But the original, I think, was fine the way it was. Yeah,
Yeah, nothing felt really, like, super, like, what the fuck kind of situation. Like, the plot, I feel like, was paced out very well compared to Silent Hill, I will admit that, although I still really like Silent Hill's plot, but as far as pacing goes, this was pretty evenly paced out, I could say, for
thing is, like
Resident
Silent
Evil.
Hill, you can't quite like it doesn't give you enough information to really know what's going on. Resident Evil, except
Yeah,
for Captain Wesker's motivations, are a little bit murky. But and
that
like
is
why
true.
exactly he's doing what he's doing. But other than that, everything's pretty straightforward in the Resident Evil plot.
Ostensibly, Wesker's motivation in the first game, not taking anything from the
Just
sequels into account, is that he was a mole for Umbrella. Um,
Hmm.
and I guess he was keeping tabs on Chief Irons on the yeah, because
Well,
he
Chief
turns
Irons
out
isn't in the first game,
yeah,
so we
he's not
can't.
even referenced.
Well,
But
actually,
okay, so
he is on Jill and Chris's IDs. Chief Iron's signature is on there, even
yep.
in the
mm,
first game.
But
But I think
ostensibly, he was keeping tabs on the police force, and so he was leader of Stars, right? And
yes.
he was also trying to get combat data from the zombies and the tyrant. You know, like oh, if Chris and
we should
Jill and
bring
the
up
others
Tyrant.
die,
Tyrant is the ultimate bio weapon. That apparently the
supposedly,
reason that the Tyrant virus exists, or the T virus, is that it was somehow related to them making Tyrant. But Tyrant's been declared a failure because you find a note that says to destroy Tyrant and move the other
Mhm.
weapons out. But not Chris, Captain Wesker, he's the head of your squad. He's a shady character, wears sunglasses at night, and you find out at the end he set you guys up all along, and he's out for himself. He wants to steal the Tyrant
That's
for
what it
himself
seemed like. Yeah.
and sell it to someone, presumably. So like he's not even working for Umbrella Corporation anymore. He's out on his own. But I don't know why his plan involved showing up and getting attacked by zombie dogs himself. and then like just locking one person up in a cell and letting everyone else wander around the mansion.
Yeah, it's quite odd.
And it's like the person in the cell doesn't seem to know that Captain Wesker's a traitor because he doesn't or she doesn't warn you when you see them.
Yeah, so for those of us getting confused, so if you were so you have the option to play the 2 characters, so either Chris or Jill. So if
Uh-huh.
you're playing Jill, Chris is the one that's in prison and you don't find him till the end of the game, closer to the end. And if you're Chris, it's reversed, so Jill is the one who's prisoner and you don't
And if
find
you
her
don't
till
find
closer
the
to the end.
special floppy disks that open the prison, then you never find your partner and you get like the not good ending. Like there's basically three endings. You rescue the other player character and your partner, or you only rescue one of them. Yep.
And then the bad ending is you're the only survivor.
Yeah, only survivor. And apparently, if you get the really bad ending, it turns out Tyrant is still alive, and he's just like
Yeah,
standing
the
there with.
mansion doesn't blow up either.
Oh, Tyrant! Nobody likes you. He has a giant heart outside of his chest.
Yeah, so going off lore, he has I think 2 or 3 hearts, and they
Okay.
grafted an extra on his chest because he needed more energy or some shit. I don't know.
Oh my god. And it's just like at least the tyrants in the sequels all wear like coats and stuff. That their giant heart is not immediately visible.
Yeah, this dude's
Mm,
just naked.
It's yeah,
he
tyrant is
he he is
he's
straight up
there's
naked.
There are
also
naked
naked
zombies
zombies in
too.
the lab, and they respawn. Other zombies stay dead when you leave and come back, but
Mhm.
the naked zombies respawn, and no one likes that.
Yeah, it makes it seem
No,
like they had a cloning facility for their test subjects.
for sure.
Oh, the
Dumb
naked
thing.
Yeah,
zombies.
I
Yeah.
think just because I just finished watching I mean, I've seen the movies before, but I just finished watching the first one, and
Oh yeah,
it's just like
is Captain Wesker in that movie?
there is nobody. There
No,
is no one.
I don't
okay, in
I
this
understand why
think
you'd make a
tech
movie like that.
technically speaking, there is a person who is supposed to be like the doctor. What doctor? Can't think of the goddamn name right now, but you don't really see him till like the end, and it's not necessarily that he's
What
like.
doctor?
No, so
Is it?
Wesker is in the sequels, but he was never like the head of Stars or anything. I don't think
Mhm,
he's just like one of the head guys at Umbrella. And he dresses like he
right.
did in RE5 with the leather coat and everything.
Poor Wesker.
Which is bizarre because he's not working for Umbrella by the time RE5 happens. He's not even working for them by the time Code Veronica happens.
Not working for them by the
Mhm.
time RE1 happens. He's already
Yeah,
betrayed them
because
before we
no,
even
it,
see.
that was basically the mission he was betraying them on, basically. Not
Oh,
sure
here's a
why he
question.
told everybody, but
Because the way you
whatever.
find out that Wesker's bad is you find a slideshow, a literal slideshow, in the secret
Literally.
lab, and you play it in the projector, and the very last slide is a picture of the research team, and Captain Wesker is there. Like, were you shocked when you saw that, Jessica?
What that Wesker's the bad
Yeah, that
guy? I
Captain
mean,
Wesker
if
was evil. I
I
played
wanna
Resident Evil 4, so Wesker was already a bad guy in that one.
oh, so you already knew. I mean,
I don't know how he survived.
not really, because, like, I felt like just anybody just from movie reference, that anybody could be the bad guy, so I wasn't, like, super duper shocked when I found out,
It's
like,
like, I don't get it.
Wesker
The
was the
bad
bad
guy
guy.
plan isn't the best plan. And then he gets killed by Tyrant, like the second that he lets it out. Or that only happens in the Chris run. In the Jill
Mm,
run, he just gets knocked out and then escapes.
yeah.
Presumably he's the one that triggers the lab to blow up, but I don't understand why he did that.
Oh wait, so do you remember when Chris was laughing at Wesker
Oh my
in the
god,
first run?
Jessica, when you play as Chris, Wesker
Ok
shows you the Tyrant, and Chris just thinks it's so
oh,
ridiculous he starts laughing, and Wesker's like, "Hey,
Shut
stop
up.
it," in like
Stop
the
it.
whiniest voice possible.
Yeah,
Like
like a nerd getting picked on in some cartoon or something.
because like
oh my
Wesker's in
god,
the remake, they try and make him into kind of a badass, but in the original, he's kind of a weenie.
I see.
Brad,
Um,
the helicopter pilot, is the ultimate weenie. Do you remember when he throws Jill the rocket launcher and he's like, "You can do it, Jill. You're an Amazon."
there's just okay. As much as you like okay, Silent Hill has way better I'm not saying it's perfect acting whatsoever,
It
but way
does.
better acting than this game.
Honestly, as of Resident Evil 2, the acting is like I think on the same level as Silent Hill, but the first one is just so hilariously bad. We gotta go over some of the best lines. almost all of them are from Barry. When Barry gives Jill the lock pad, he says, "It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking."
I couldn't just like after that, I was just like, okay, this is just comedy now. Like
Yeah,
we're
'cause
just
Ooh,
I'm
did
just
you get
playing a
into the
they
comedy
actually
game.
they made it official that Jill's actual, like, nickname at the precinct was the Master of Unlocking as a joke.
Oh, did you go into the room with the shotgun and, trigger the trap, Jessica?
Yes, and then
And
I
then
found
Barry
out that
saves
you could
you?
have used the broken shotgun apparently.
I know, well, sometimes Barry doesn't save you. That happened to me a couple times, and I was like, "What, Barry? Why?" But so, when Barry saves you, he goes, "That was close. You were almost a Jill sandwich."
It's just so
But
bad,
the
That's
it's
thing
one
is,
of the
funny.
best lines in the
when he finds the
series.
acid rounds, he's like, "It's especially
Oh.
powerful against living things."
Did you know they bring up the Jill sandwich thing again in Revelations 2?
What did they say?
Claire makes a joke about I was almost a Claire sandwich, and then Moira Burden says, "Damn it, does Barry always tell everybody that story?"
Oh, Moira. So apparently he's been regaling his daughter with tales of the time he got locked in a zombie mansion.
No, he tells everybody the tale of the time he was in the zombie mansion.
Oh man. Oh, Barry. Oh, can we talk about how okay, when you beat the plant as Chris, basically, when you're Jill, there's certain puzzles you can do as Jill that you can't do as Chris. Like you can play this sheet music you find to open a secret door,
Yeah,
but
the
then you try it
Moonlight
as Chris
Sonata.
and it goes, Chris can't read music. And then you have to mix up a chemical agent to kill a plant boss. When you try and do it as Chris, it goes, Chris doesn't know how to handle chemicals. And basically, Rebecca has to come and do these things for him. And Ariel suggested to me, and I agree, that Chris is a himbo.
I mean, okay, so what is the benefit of playing as like Chris, I guess? Is it
It's
just
not.
that
It's kind
you're
of
you're
hard mode to play as
faster?
Chris.
Does
It's
that
just
it's just harder, I
it's hard
guess?
Yeah,
mode.
in Japan, it was called hard mode,
And
and
his
Jill was
special
called
weapon
easy.
sucks. He has his flamethrower, but it has an effective range of like 1 foot, and you get it right before you fight the spider boss, the black tiger. It doesn't work on the
Mm,
spider boss. Like I got killed like 5 times trying to use the flamethrower, and in the end, I just took out my magnum and I shot the spider and I won. And it's like, well,
that's
so I could have
lame.
just yeah. His special weapon sucks, and Jill's special weapon is a grenade launcher.
It's called the bazooka, but
Okay. It's a grenade launcher in the remake. I messed up. Oh, they actually made one of Barry's lines worse in the remake. When he finds
What
the
was
acid
it?
rounds for you, he goes, "It's a can of fizz. This ought to mellow the yellow of any monsters out there."
God,
Which is like that's
very
worse than it's a weapon.
Nah, I love Barry. Barry's great.
Barry's great.
He's one of the most memorable. I'm so sad that he doesn't really appear in the rest of the series
He's in
until Revelations
Revelations.
2. Yeah,
Yeah.
Revelations 2 was like
And his
20
daughter
years
hates
later.
him. And then I looked up
Well,
why does his
that's
daughter hates him,
yeah.
and it's because she shot her sister and
No,
Barry got mad at her.
that was a twist, Connor. That's a
I didn't know that
twist
was a twist. It's just
in
on
the
the wiki, like,
game.
there's no big
Well,
deal.
yeah, because the wiki doesn't care
It's like
about
I
it,
think
but
they were
that's a twist
afraid
in
to
the
make
game.
Barry unsympathetic, so they're like, "Your daughter only hates you because she's an idiot who shot her sister."
Well, Barry okay, so since we already spoiled part of big twist in Rev 2. So Barry then realizes because he was angry at his daughter too about it, right? Because he kept
Be
blaming her.
angry. My daughter shot my sister. I mean,
No,
shot
no,
my
but then he
sister.
realizes that it was his fault because he should have locked up his guns because they were still children when it happened.
I mean, yeah, Barry is at
I mean,
fault
it makes
there, but
sense.
I'd still be
Yeah, but
mad if
he
my daughter shot my other daughter.
well,
well,
yeah, but
that's
he
very
never
dark.
accepted it. He never accepted responsibility for his part in it. So that
Very,
makes
very,
sense.
very. Is his
Don't worry,
daughter
they
okay?
make up. They make up by the end.
Is his other daughter okay?
Yeah, she's alive.
Okay, good,
But she's
good.
not in any of the games. It's just
Apparently, Wesker
Moira.
has twin daughters as well.
Wesker?
Yeah, that's gonna be in the new show. It's about Wesker's twin daughters.
I have not heard about him having any children.
Yeah, this is a new revelation because we find out
Yeah.
about Barry's family quite a lot. Wesker is like, be careful. I hear Barry has to do whatever I say, or his family will be in danger.
Oh yeah. Also in Rev 2, Barry smashes a locked fence with a crane and then says, "Who's the master of unlocking now?"
Oh God. Oh, we need to talk about when you beat the plant boss as Chris. Chris turns to Rebecca and says, "I guess we got to the root of that problem.
And Rebecca doesn't respond.
Yeah. But the thing is, like,
That was an actual joke. Yeah, in the game.
when you play as Rebecca, or well, you have to play as Rebecca for some parts. You never play as Barry when you play as Jill, but when you play as Chris,
No.
sometimes you take over Rebecca. Like
Mm,
you have to get serum to for the snake bites. Um,
right.
but she actually notices earlier that all of the chemicals in the little chemical shed are made by Umbrella, and she brings it up to
Mm.
Chris. She's like, "It looks like all of these are made by Umbrella," and Chris is like, "What's Umbrella?" So it's like there's a little more exposition in the.
Wait, that doesn't make sense though because Umbrella in the wait, but in the sequels it doesn't make sense because Umbrella is such a big part of
Well, I
Raccoon
mean, do you
City's
know about
economy.
every company that runs everything in like
At,
in New York City?
well, considering Umbrella keeps donating money to to the Raccoon City Police Department, Chris actually should.
You know,
I
he's
mean,
just
we
the
already
benefit of the
established she
audience.
was a
He
himbo,
is
is what you
totally a
No,
said.
but
himbo.
I guess you can chalk it up to just they didn't know if they were going to be
And like
sequels, so
as the
it's
games
fine.
go
It's
on, his
fine.
head stays the same size, but his body gets bigger and buffer.
Oh yeah, by the some of the later games they really start changing his
I think it
character
was
model.
Yahtzee said that he looks like somebody took a shrunken head and put it on top of a refrigerator, and that's like that's Chris by the later.
Jesus.
No,
This
so Chris runs away from a boulder in RE1. By 5, he's punching boulders to destroy
Oh
them.
yeah. Let's talk about
Mm,
the bosses, huh? There's a number of bosses. First is Yawn, a snake. Then there's a giant spider named Black Tiger. And then there's a giant plant, plant number 42. And then of
mhm.
course our final enemy, the tyrant. I think that's all the boss. But you fight this guy
Yeah.
twice. And the first time you don't have to kill him. You can just run in and grab the medallion and run out. So honestly, sometimes that's easier, but the controls do make that difficult to do.
Also the camera angle because it switches like 3 times in that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
cinematic camera angles. I like those because I feel like you get cool views of the mansion, and with the tank controls it never feels too disorienting. If it was analog controls, it would be really messed up. The camera kept changing because you just
Honestly, Connor, I think that you should try the either director's cut or DualShock version because with the arranged mode it changes the camera angles and where items are. And also if you play DualShock version, you get to listen to the new way worse soundtrack.
Oh god, I've heard the kitchen music. Oh, you go to the kitchen in one scene, and weirdly, okay, so some monsters have like special introductions. Like a new type of more powerful enemy called the Hunter has a special little FMV that plays when he bursts in for the first time. When you're in
Yeah.
the kitchen, they play a special FMV for a new monster coming, and then it's just a regular ass zombie.
No, I think it was just to show that enemies are invading the
Okay.
mansion again.
And it was pointed out online that the only time that zombies are ever able to use doorknobs is in that FMV.
Oh, wow.
Because
Must
like
have been a smart zombie.
even in like the Resident Evil remake where the zombies can follow you into rooms, they just burst open doors. They can't use doorknobs.
Mm,
Yeah. The zombies can just follow you from room to room in Resident Evil 2 remake, and it kind of sucks.
Well, yeah, but there are no loading animations in that
Yeah.
game, so they can break them down.
I had trouble the first time that I fought a zombie because I didn't understand how to tell when it was dead. And like it would fall down and I think I was fine, and then it would just get up and attack
Well,
me again.
that's how they get you, Connor. You
you
have
had
I
to
to
wait
know.
for the
For the
pool
let
of
them
pool of
blood
blood,
to
yeah.
Augustine
show.
had to tell me that, but that's the secret. That's not really in the remake. So the remake is just nobody knows when the zombie's dead, and then they'll
You have to
even
burn
get
them.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't burn the bodies, they come back as more powerful zombies.
So you have to destroy
Oh,
the head if you don't want them to come back.
But you have limited kerosene to use to burn them.
And limited shotgun
mm,
shells. And also it's just random when you'll
Oh
do a
yeah, because in
critical.
the first Resident Evil, getting a decapitation of a zombie with a shotgun was actually pretty easy. But
yeah.
like you just wait till they get close enough and bam, and it usually works. The remake it's a lot harder.
Mm.
And I found out later I was playing on easy mode. I thought I was playing on normal because the three options are like very poetic. They don't say easy, normal, hard, but like there's three options and you think it would be easy, normal, hard, but it's actually very easy, easy, and normal. Which is like what? It's like when
No,
Burger
no,
King
no.
changed
Well,
all their sizes.
they're like very easy is you go for a walk.
Yeah. And
Very easy. Regular easy is like you go on a hike, right?
normal
And
is you
then
climb a
normal is
mountain.
you climb a mountain. Yeah, yeah.
And it's like you would think climbing a mountain would be hard, right?
Mhm.
But no, that's normal and you unlock hard mode, I guess, when you beat normal. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, those 3 difficulties were in the HD version of the remake because the initial 2002 release and the Wii version, you only have the, hike and the mountain climbing difficulties. But,
Mm.
that's in the remake though, so
Yeah, the
let's go back
original.
to the original for a
It's
sec.
Jill
So,
and Chris are the only difficulty options, and Chris just has less item spaces, which is a big.
essentially, the game is harder because he's a less competent person.
And you can't pick locks the
Yes.
way that, like Jill has a lockpick that doesn't take up any inventory space. Chris needs to find keys. Like all those bathtubs that had dirty water in them. I don't know if you encountered any in your playthrough, Jessica. A lot of them
Yeah.
have keys hidden in them in the Chris playthrough that you need to find and use.
There was only one key in the bathtub for Jill.
And
That
like
was it.
there's a whole different key that you don't even need to find as Jill that opens all the sword doors because Jill can just
Mhm.
pick those locks. And then like
Uh,
she's got two extra item spaces. Chris has only six. Jill has eight, and that's a big deal because you have to carry a bunch of stuff around with you. And you most of the game for me was just going back to the stupid box and putting my items
oh
in.
my god, that was kind of annoying for sure.
And
At
luckily,
least, like,
all the
if
boxes are connected somehow. So
right?
See,
If
okay.
for si
Oh, wait, go
that
ahead,
was just
Jessica, and
very
then
frustrating as far as, like, gameplay. Like, just are we gonna transition to gameplay or
well, first we'll go into graphics, but let me just
okay.
say about the item boxes, since we're on the topic. The original plan was actually they weren't going to be connected
Oh
you
god,
can
that was
find a
uh,
mode
taken
like that in the
because they
remake.
thought that it yeah in the remake that was a mode you can unlock, but in the original plan was that you can't they're not linked because they're like that doesn't make sense. But then they thought, well, it's
that would've
annoying.
just taken
Yeah, that's
longer.
what they
Oh
ended up
my
realizing,
god.
so they're like, "You know what? Just fuck it, just make it so it's the item boxes are all
It's like
linked."
the thing with Silent Hill giving you unlimited inventory and unlimited saves. I feel like that's a
Mm,
direct response to them limiting both of those things in this game.
could you imagine? Oh my god.
Did you know that there are, like, little checklists in Resident Evil 2 Remake for there's, one achievement you can do where you never use an item box?
Oh God, how do
You
you
have
do
basically,
that?
you have to plan out the entire game, what items you're gonna get, and if you have to do them perfectly.
Nonsense. I'm never getting that achievement. I don't care. It's just like there's an achievement in Dead Rising where you have to survive for 7 days, but each day in that game is 2 hours of real time and you can't save. So the achievement is literally survive in the game for 14 hours,
Yep.
real
So
time.
I wouldn't
basically
do that, that's just a waste
I
of
know
time.
some of these achievements. I don't think they actually think that anyone's going to do them.
oh, no, they know that someone's gonna actually fucking do
Well, then
them.
it's
Just
criminally irresponsible.
didn't say it was right for
People's
them to do.
families are going to die because they
Alright.
don't feed their kids. Um,
So going back to the music briefly before we go to
oh yeah,
graphics. So did we what did we think of the soundtrack? I thought it was effective.
it didn't make
The
much of
original
an
soundtrack.
impression on me, honestly. It wasn't bad, but I don't really remember any of the songs.
And what
I
about
don't
you, Jessica?
either.
The save
I'm
room
with
music was
Connors.
nice. I like the save room music. They reused
I'm
that
I
in one of the
mean,
sequels.
just the yeah, Silent Hill wins on that one as far as, like, sound is
oh,
concerned.
oh yeah,
Honestly,
agreed.
Silent Hill music was more like noise to me. So I think this had better music than Silent Hill because at least it wasn't annoying and distracting.
Okay, heavy disagree there because I remember the Silent Hill soundtrack. I don't really remember the first game for RE. I don't really remember the soundtrack too well. But it's still better than that DualShock version soundtrack,
Oh my
which has
god.
like two or three good tracks, and then everything else is terrible, including the basement theme, where they
Awful
have the
noise.
clown noises or whatever the hell that was supposed to
Oh
be.
god.
Now, did you know that the person who supposedly composed that was deaf?
Oh,
No.
wow.
And no, and do you wanna know what else though? That dude was faking being deaf for his entire career at Capcom, and he was actually stealing someone else's work who was his ghostwriter,
Oh my
That
which
is
is the
such
god.
a
reason why in the Onimusha, which is another Capcom series, when they did the remaster a few years ago for the HD version, they
Mhm.
actually did a completely new soundtrack because of all the issues related to reusing his old soundtrack.
absolutely nuts.
That's insane, isn't it?
It is.
That dude was a scumbag.
What
Oh,
a
but
psychopath.
we're talking
Jesus.
about graphics now, huh?
Yeah, let's go
Just
to
for the sake of
graphics,
the
yeah.
audience, this is this game. It didn't have the PlayStation didn't have the power to render the whole area as polygonal 3D. So the reason the game is the way it is with the fixed camera angles is that the backgrounds are actually just image files. Like the objects aren't really there. They're pre-rendered images that are put in the background, and that's why
Mhm.
every shot has to be a very specific camera angle because they have to know exactly where you can and can't go in order for you to interact correctly with the environment. But as a result, the environments actually look really, really good for 1996.
Do they? Do they? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they do for 96. They look really
Mhm,
good. The
mhm,
characters, they get to use the entire polygon budget on the characters and the monsters. And I think
mm.
that's one of the key factors that puts this game above Silent Hill because Silent Hill was doing the backgrounds too. It didn't have a lot of polygons to use for the monsters, and so they just look like weird shapes. I think the monsters here actually look like recognizable things.
I can agree with that for
Yeah,
sure. The monsters here look better.
they don't look like the fighting polygon team from Smash Brothers.
I ended up just checking out on my emulator for the PS1.
Mhm,
Okay, so
mhm.
I played the DS version, which changes some things because I think that's more the definitive version. But I did try the game on emulator, and I put it on 1080p.
Oh no,
And
don't do that.
the character models actually look really, really good. They actually have faces and everything. They
Oh,
looks like
wow.
early PS2,
I mean, because they
which is
didn't have
great.
to use the
No,
processing power to
exactly.
make
So
anything
now the
else.
game looks really, really good.
The one thing is it's a little hard to tell when there's things you can interact with and when there aren't. Like they make the interactable things sparkly most of the time, but like
Yeah, for the
because
most
everything's
part.
part of the same like pre-rendered image, it's hard to tell if there's something you can touch or
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think the one of the harder items to find are like the handgun clips,
oh
just
yeah,
because
they
they
blend into
kind
the
of blend,
background.
yeah, with the black backgrounds.
And then like, oh, the herbs. We got to talk about the herbs that you use to heal yourself. Those are cool. I saw a TikTok that was just a girl in Jill Valentine cosplay just eating a plant. Just like,
It just looks like they're smoking pot to heal up,
oh
is what
man,
it looks
you
like.
have a filthy mind. It's like the
Well,
first
no, later
airspray.
on it's shown that either so you know how they actually consume them?
No, tell us.
Mm.
It's
How
powder,
because
right?
in RE6 and RE5 you can see how they consume them. So essentially, technically, they're spraying them. It's an ointment on their body, right?
Mm,
And
mhm.
so that's why you can turn it into a first aid spray. And in six, they're tablets that you eat that you
I
consume.
see. I see.
So yeah, that's how they actually consume the green herbs and red herbs and all that shit.
Mhm.
Like, you have to, in order to save the game, you save it a typewriter, where presumably you're just writing like a journal of everything that's happened to you at this point. But in order to save on
Probably.
the typewriter, in a weird nod to reality, I guess, you need to put an ink ribbon in the typewriter so that it will work. And there's limited ink ribbons, so this game has limited saves. But they
Yes.
usually just give you 2 ink ribbons every time you find a new typewriter, which was enough for me, but still made me nervous because when I had unlimited saves in other games, I would like mess with my inventory, save, mess with it some more, save again. Like I will abuse being
Yeah,
able to save. I saved so many times in Silent
absolutely.
Hill.
And see, this is another way they screw you over, Connor, because in America it was two ink ribbons. Everywhere else it was three.
Yeah, even in Remake, it was 3 ink ribbons.
Yeah,
I forgot
also
to
in
mention.
RE2 Remake, if you play hardcore mode and you have to use ink ribbons again, you still get three.
Because in RE2, when I played it, I used every single ink ribbon I could find throughout the game, and at the end, I had only saved 20 times. Whereas in like Remake, I think I saved like 30 sometimes. I saved like almost 60 times in RE2 Remake because saving was free, and it's like why not save? You know, like I don't want to redo stuff.
I know. Ugh, so fucking
Yeah, that
frustrating.
is the
Me
one
getting so
frustrating thing.
far.
And having to go all the way back. Like, honestly, that's my one big problem with the game is like, just give me some checkpoints. RE4 introduced checkpoints where if you die, you don't get kicked back to the title screen. It just kind of loads the last area for you.
I see.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
rest
I was just
ribbon.
taking up time, not even just like game, like in-game time, because the game, like when you beat the game, it tells you how long it took you to complete it and how many saves. But like just even taking that away, just to continuously go back to the main screen and click on which it's just like another fucking
I know. And it's
st
supposed to
Oh,
be
and
like, doesn't it make you scared
watching
to
Chris
die? It's
get
like, no.
killed by a dog or something when he goes, "Oh, ah," on the title
yeah.
screen.
God, Chris.
Uh,
The dogs bursting in through the window.
yeah,
Oh,
the
that was
Cerberus zombie
they
dogs.
get you. And honestly, it's not even
It
worth it to fight them until you get a shotgun.
I disagree. I use the pistol on nearly all of them.
I used the pistol too.
Yeah.
I waited till I got a shotgun. Or I think I used the bazooka on them, which might have been overkill, but those
Yeah.
friggin' dogs.
All right, so we agree the graphics are pretty impressive, even though they kind of cheat with those
I mean,
pre-rendered
yeah, they do
backgrounds.
cheat, but I think it looks better than games that came out years later.
And also,
Mhm.
we transitioning to gameplay, but we generally agree this is a good game, right? Like it feels good to
I had
play
a great time with
despite
this
some
game.
issues.
I like
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't feel like there was like overtly dumb shit to do or anything like that. Overall, yeah, the it was fine.
I kind of regret using a guide for the game because I feel all the other Resident Evil games I just played blind, and it was
Mhm.
more fun that way. So honestly, I'd say because with Silent Hill, I said definitely use a guide. I would say don't use a guide for this game. Like you can figure it out. It's not obtuse like Silent Hill, and it's
Yeah, no, I agree. The puzzles are not like when I did get to a room that looked like a puzzle, I kind of just already had figured it out, and then when I just looked back at my guide, I was like, "Oh, cool, I already figured it out.
Yeah,
Fantastic."
and unlike Silent Hill, basically all the doors are unlockable. Whereas in Silent Hill, sometimes you'll go to a door and it just says it's broken. It's just
Yeah.
yeah.
useless. It's just a
That was
waste of
some
time.
nonsense.
And
They
also
added broken doors in the remake, and they were irritating as hell.
sometimes
I
it'll break after a while too in the
I
Yeah.
remake.
will admit, I do like Silent Hill's map a lot better, just in the sense of like
Oh, the
it'll X
detail.
mark things you can't get into
Oh
currently.
yeah. The
Like,
sequels really improve on the map. I gotta say that.
oh, do they?
But
Okay,
yeah, like
yeah.
RE2 remake
Yeah.
definitely has a
And
good map.
starting with remake, they do this thing where the room is red if you haven't found all the items, and it turns blue when you find them, which
Yeah.
Oh,
makes it
that's nice.
so much nicer. It's more like a Metroid type of thing.
I may be wrong, but I think they also did that for the DS remake of this game.
And then I think it was I forget which game it was that started actually putting an X on the map for where you are, but that made it so much easier
See,
to figure out.
that I just like figuring out like I didn't get like super lost, but just like remembering, fuck, where the fuck am I supposed to go again? I know I was here and
Jessica,
just.
did you sneak
Mhm.
past zombies or did you just kill them? Because I had a hard time sneaking past because it was all narrow corridors, you know?
At first, in the beginning, like, I was shooting everything, but then when I was realizing, like, I was running out of ammo, which I think this is why I was just like, why we postponed it because it was taking me so long to, like, just because I kept dying, and so, like, I would go all the way back to where I started because I didn't wanna, like, waste my saves 'cause I didn't know at the time how many, like, ink ribbons you were gonna get, so I didn't wanna waste any at that point. So, I just started shooting everything for the most part, but then it was just, like, certain things you just wanna save your ammo for, whereas for Silent Hill, I didn't feel like I was ever running out of ammo. For this game, I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm running out of fucking ammo."
See,
And the knife is just a joke, like, why even have that as a weapon? It's
I
just
mean, honestly,
garbage.
I'm running out of ammo in every game I play. Like, no matter what, like online, I always goes, "You'll never run out of ammo in Resident Evil 4," and I'm over in Resident Evil 4 with no ammo. Like, fuck you! I'm using a sniper rifle in close range combat because
Yeah,
I don't have any.
I already told you this over text, but yeah, I agree. Like RE4, you do run out of ammo even if you're hitting most of your shots.
Yeah,
Because I had an 80, 75 to 80% hit rate, and I'm still like scrounging for ammo in that
I
fucking
know, and
game.
people are like, "Oh, you never run out of ammo." Who are these people that are just like godlike at every game and are
Feel
like,
like
"Oh,
they're
it's easy."
I feel like maybe they sucked and the game was adapting the difficulty for them.
Oh yeah, apparently Resident Evil 4 will adapt to be easier if you suck, and I must really
And it
suck
becomes
if the
harder
villagers are like
if you're
blowing each
good.
other up.
Is it really? That's crazy.
Yeah, but it still
Yeah.
has difficulty modes, so I don't know.
Well, professional just makes everything on max permanently.
Horrible. I don't want
Oh.
that.
Oh no, I mean it's my favorite way to play the
I
game.
just want to have fun with my games. I don't want my games to to
Yeah.
be mean
Well,
to me.
one thing that is not in this game that is in RE4 is being able to physically attack with kicks and shit. Because
Oh yeah, that's fun, and you can kick
that's
somebody's head off before.
yeah. Well, in this game
Okay.
your only melee is the knife, and the knife is shit.
The
Oh yeah, the
knife
knife is. I
is
tried to use the knife on the first zombie and I died, and then I had to watch the opening cutscene again.
In RE2 it's even
literally.
worse. In RE2 you need like 20 hits to down them, and they're not even dead.
I didn't
Oh
even
my
realize I could just run
god.
into the other room and Barry would kill the zombie for me. So, like, way to go, Barry. Like, honestly, Barry just saves Jill all the time.
I feel okay, so I feel that this game is a good example of the actual play space is quite like small, you know? It's not a huge
Mhm.
it's like a sizable mansion. The game doesn't feel small, but if you actually think about the actual playing area compared to like your average open world game, it's actually really tiny. But it feels like there's a lot of things packed in. So there's always
Yeah.
something to do and you're always planning like how do I get past these enemies? Should I kill them? Should I save my items? What puzzle pieces do I need? You're always thinking about your next move in this game. And I feel that's one of the better aspects of Resident Evil as a whole.
I was always killing enemies. I just don't have the ability to sneak by these guys. Like the hunters, I used my magnum ammo on them because I
Oh no,
couldn't.
against hunters I do recommend just killing them. But some you can the way I work is that I do have to kill zombies if it's somewhere I'm running past backtracking. But
Mhm.
in general I prefer to bait them and then just run past them
Because
because the zombies are easy to confuse.
the zombos will just get you in the narrow hallways.
I did like how if there's a zombie on the ground and they're like crawling towards you and they bite you, you if you keep mashing the button, you'll kick their head off. That was fun.
Yeah.
But I'm never sure if they're dead or not, and then I don't want to waste bullets firing into their backs. Like the one by the elevator, I hate that one. And then like the way that you aim downwards, and it's never quite clear. I love that in Resident Evil 4 they gave you a laser sight, so you knew if you were gonna hit something or not.
Mhm.
This
I
Yeah,
is
that
felt
oh, go ahead,
I
Jessica.
was gonna say, I feel like for when like, and I don't know, maybe I'm biased on it, but I felt like for Silent Hill, I thought it was a lot easier to use, like, for aiming in general versus like,
well, Harry had
s
auto aim. Harry would just aim
yeah,
at
that
you and
might have
Yeah.
been
save.
just it then, because
And
the mission was just so
the
frustrating.
Japanese
Like,
version of this game had auto aim too.
Yeah, it may have been better for everybody to play director's cut because they have auto aim as an
Because like
optional thing.
Yawn is so hard to aim at. I would keep missing him, and I used up all my bazooka rounds.
yeah,
And it's like if I had auto aimed at Yawn, that fight would have probably been over really fast.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
exactly.
easier, yeah.
you can reload in the menu instead of like reloading in the game itself by combining bullets with guns.
Yeah,
And
it
you can do the same
just
thing in
take
Silent Hill. It takes up so much less time.
it does. I think just overall, that was just my biggest frustration. Because don't get me wrong, I do like, I do like being able to, like, shooting games or killing, in the sense of, like I said, I played Fallout, played Skyrim,
Well,
like,
she
even Tomb
always said she
Raider.
liked killing, officer. I just
So, like, I was feeling like I was losing the joy in that because of just the crappy aiming and the fact that the knife was garbage. Like,
don't even
if
know why they
like,
gave you the knife.
realistically, if you're trying to conserve on ammo and you could, like, just cut a bitch with the knife, like, why is it so bad? It like, and the
I feel
zombies
like
are
they
so
want you to use up your
slow.
ammo, but I don't know why they even gave you a knife if it's not going to work. Chris doesn't even start with a gun. Chris starts with only the knife.
Oh my god, I could not.
We have to run into the other room and then you just take Jill's gun because
Yeah, that
Jill
she
mysteriously
dropped.
vanishes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Wikipedia on the reception for this game.
Mhm.
Oh, it got good reviews.
Computer game well, it got excellent reviews at the time, but specifically I'm looking at Computer Gaming World and what they said about the PC version.
What
They
they say?
said
Mhm.
this is a quote, okay? "Tried to hate it with its graphic violence, rampant sexism, poor voice acting, and use of every horror cliché. However, it's actually fun."
See, I saw that and I'm not sure where they got rampant sexism from. Like, I mean, Jill
I
is
mean,
probably one of the
Jill's a
more capable
badass, yeah.
female heroes.
I
I mean,
wouldn't I was gonna say, I don't know if it's a because I didn't play Chris. I felt like for Jill, like, for the most part, like, she's the fucking master.
She's the master of unlocking.
it's like Barry does
Unlocking.
save her a couple times, but
But it
like,
feels more like teamwork than
and
anything because 'cause you're
Rebecca
both
saves
doing
Yeah.
Chris. Like Rebecca
yeah,
saves Chris,
repeatedly,
and
and
Rebecca's smarter than Chris. Chris is fucking dumb.
he's like 23 to 26 years old, 25, something like that.
Yeah, Jill is
But
23.
yeah, Rebecca's 18 and she's way smarter than he is at, like,
Yeah,
everything.
Nobody is in, like, fucking, like, sexy outfits
that's the thing.
either,
Like
so,
Capcom
like
is usually the horniest video game company. They
And
brought us
and I
Street Fighter and
and I
Dark.
don't think the alternate costumes are too bad in this game either,
Oh yeah, you can get a costume with like a belly shirt for Jill
but
when you
it's
beat the
not
game.
anything extreme. But
You
like you
know?
were saying, Connor, about the
Yeah, Capcom. They're the
horniness.
horniest video game company. Have you ever seen Darkstalkers, Jessica?
Oh.
Oh, it has like a cat girl and anyway.
No, so and no, before that, we're going to Darkstalkers for a small little tangent. So all the male characters in that series, they're like these monster dudes, right? And they look appropriately monstrous for the most part.
Except
Uh-huh.
Frankenstein's monster is very butt focused for some reason.
Yeah, but
Okay.
and then you go to the female characters, and they're all like the sexiest monster girls you'll ever
There's a
see.
succubus and
No,
a
2
demon.
succubi.
Who
So
succubi?
by the 3rd game.
Oh man, but so like they reined it in because like Street Fighter, you see Chun Li and Cammy and Rainbow Mika. Um,
Mhm.
they rein themselves in for Resident Evil, and I appreciate that. Although like everyone's uniform looks completely different on Stars. Like Jill
Yeah,
has a
that
Yeah,
little
doesn't
that was
make
a
gray
bit
hat
sense.
and shoulder
You
weird.
padding.
think they'd all have the same uniform.
Jill's the only one who looks like she's in a uniform. Everyone else is just like look like they're going fishing.
She's also the only
Or
one without a vest,
hiking.
right?
Does
She's
She
she have
got
a
has, like, a
shoulder pads.
shoulder pad looking
Yeah, what are
vest
the
type
shoulder pads
thing.
for? I think a vest would be more useful. And
apparently they
she's wearing
added
a beret too.
apparently they added
Mhm.
jiggle to Jill in the remake, but I legit didn't
I
notice.
couldn't notice it either.
It's
It's
too
probably very
dark to see
minor.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
So not
Jill.
a
Yeah,
yeah, not a huge
I
deal.
can agree, yeah, everyone does not Jill's the only one who looks like yeah, that she's in an actual uniform. Everyone else looks just like they just look like fucking mercenaries. They
They look
don't
like
look
they're going on a hunting trip.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And then friggin' Brad, the helicopter pilot, just abandons you at the beginning.
What a loser.
And
What
it's
a
like,
fucking
no,
Okay.
loser.
don't
They
go.
kinda try to save his character in RE3 Remake. I think it
Yeah.
kinda worked there, but in original canon, yeah, he's a kind of a loser.
He's a
He
little
he
bit.
does come back to save them. Thankfully, nobody actually died because of him, though.
Well,
And
I don't know.
ironically, him leaving saved Rebecca.
So like was Captain Wesker's original plan to just get on the helicopter and leave?
That would have been
Right?
better, yeah, had Brad been on the take.
Like why did he even go out there if he knew there were monsters? And how was he gonna steal Tyrant if he had gotten on the helicopter and left? Like I'm not sure
Mhm.
what Wesker's ultimate plan was, but it didn't make a lot of sense.
I think they try to retcon it later, but just based off this first game, yeah, I don't fucking know why he did
He
anything he
wanted to
did.
steal the Tyrant,
But
Mm.
presumably because he would sell it to someone. I'm just guessing on that because I don't think he's going to try and start a war on his own with a single super soldier.
but why would you risk getting killed by a zombie?
I don't know. And then he gives extra bullets to Chris in one scene. Like you know how Barry leaves you a gift of some bullets in the Jill run, Jessica?
Yeah. Mhm.
Captain Wesker gives those to Chris in Chris's run, and it's like, but
Why
aren't you evil?
why didn't he just shoot Chris in the back of the head?
Yeah.
Or why couldn't just Barry? You could have still had Barry leave shit behind for Chris
Well, yeah. Except
too.
Barry's
Yeah,
mysteriously missing in Chris's
and
run.
you never find out what happens to him.
Yeah, it's just like we don't know what
Because
happened to Barry.
oddly enough, in this game, there's no way to get the canon,
You
story.
can't rescue Chris, Barry, Rebecca,
Yeah,
and
because
Yeah.
canonically, yeah, Barry and Rebecca both survive alongside Chris and Jill, but you'll never meet Rebecca as Jill, and you'll never meet
Chris and
Barry as
Jill,
Chris.
Chris Angel, mind freak.
And I guess Albert, I mean, Albert lives too, but,
Albert. I love
well,
that you're on a first name basis with Wesker.
Albert Wesker. Okay,
It's
well,
me,
Albert
Albert.
Wesker, you will never.
I guess
He
all the
dies, but I mean, he did revive in the
he
sequels.
came back apparently. He's just fine in Resident Evil 4 with no explanation at all, and apparently he
No,
got
that
him in
was
Code
explained in
Veronica.
Code Veronica because
That
Code
doesn't have a
Veronica is
number on
mainline.
it.
It was
Doesn't
supposed to be 3 until they said, "No, we need a 3rd game on PS1."
it doesn't have a number on it. It
Resident
doesn't
Evil
count.
3 was supposed to be the spin-off.
Nemesis. Nemesis made it into the movies, I think.
In the 2nd one, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Nemesis. Nemesis.
Nemesis is cool. I like
Ada
Nemesis.
Wong made it into the movies, and she looks kind of like she should.
Yeah, speaking okay, so the doctor that I was referencing, like, at the
Oh,
end
Dr.
is
John.
supposed Dr. Birkin. Is that's
Oh, Dr.
technically supposed
Birkin's
to
in
be
the second
him.
game.
Yeah, he's yeah, so when we were talking earlier about is there any actual characters from the game, technically,
They share the name, and
it's
that's about it. They might wear the same
Because like,
clothes.
did you notice that there was a note to Ada in the lab at the end of the game?
yes, I
And Ada
did.
shows up in the next game and says she's looking for her boyfriend. But it's like the guy that wrote the note seemed to think she was there in the facility. But in the second game, she's like, I don't even know where he is. I've just come to the city to track him
To
down.
be
It's like,
fair, she was probably lying.
Yeah, it turns out she's actually a spy who was trying to steal information on the
No,
virus.
Connor, now you're spoiling the sequel.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It is a spoiler. Jessica hasn't played it.
Okay. See, I'm over here playing 4 first, so I'm like,
You're over
Wesker's
here
alive
having
and
played
Ada's
like
a
half the
spy.
series already in like 2 weeks.
I know, I've been barreling through them. I'm on halfway through 4. I played
No, not even just like you played one time each. Like you've done multiple character
yeah,
routes.
I played Chris and Jill on 1. I just did Leon on
Mm.
2. Then I did Jill on remake, Leon and Claire on 2 remake, finished 3
Mm.
remake, and now I'm halfway through 4. Yeah. So having a hell of a time with these games. I am
Yeah. And you can
1000%
do
in
a
my
co-op with Ariel if you have
if I
another
make it to
controller.
5. Yeah. With
Yep.
Chris's
And
black
6.
friend so
And
that it doesn't seem
6,
as
yeah.
racist that he's wiping out a bunch of African people.
And that is actually the reason why she was added, because Sheva was a last minute addition, basically.
Yeah, people complain because like Leon going to
Yikes.
Spain and shooting a bunch of European people, it's like, yeah, that's fine. But then Chris going to Africa and shooting a bunch of African people, they're like,
They
hey,
they actually added multi-ethnic enemies,
yeah, there's
like
white guys in the African village you can shoot.
yeah, and Arabian people, basically,
Mhm.
Middle Eastern
It's like it's so
people,
much better. And they gave
white
Chris a black
people,
friend to help him wipe out all those African people. So it's like it's fine.
uh,
Uh,
a very
what's
light-skinned woman too.
Very light skin. I think it was Yahtzee described it as a white woman who'd been dipped in tea.
Yeah, he was pretty harsh on it.
Yikes.
And it's like,
Yikes.
oh man. Oh man,
No,
rest
that's
in
not
peace.
that's not even the offensive part you want. So this sort of spoilers, but you know what's the most offensive? The actual offensive thing in RE5?
What?
Mm.
Okay, the actual offensive thing is that about like in chapter 3 you go to a village
Mm-hmm.
out in the swamp,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it you find they're all dressed up in like traditional African garb is what they're going
Okay.
for, where they have like grass skirts and stuff, and they're
Mm.
attacking with spears and they're wearing like masks. And
Uh-huh.
one of the notes says that they have been regressing into the traditions of their ancestors
Oh
because
no.
of the parasite.
Ah.
That is the worst thing they
Wait, is it
could have
still Las
fucking done.
Plagas or is it something else?
It's Las Plagas modified with like the Ouroboros virus, which is the virus in the fifth game. But yeah, essentially it's Las Plagas because Wesker
So I gotta say,
uh
Mm.
like,
got a sample from the
Chris,
fourth game.
the FMVs are shot like Chris is the big hero, even when you get the Jill ending, because Jill is like sleeping on Chris's shoulder. But it's like in the Jill
Yeah,
ending, Chris did nothing.
He was locked up the whole time.
And he's like, let me be a
literally.
hero for once. He's like,
So
lady first.
I assume that is a more sexist thing that they were talking about in the computer
I
gaming
don't know
world.
where they got sexism from. I mean, I guess Jill's model is a little bit va va boom, like her just neutral stance, but
But
you got to
she's
be really
fully
looking. She
clothed,
Yeah.
is.
though. For the
She
most,
gets
like, if you look at those games, like, where they're not fully, like, they're like fucking, who really goes, like, and this is my criticism now after rewatching the fucking Resident Evil. Like, the one person who was barely wearing anything doesn't get bit, scratched, or at all. This is some fuckery.
Who was
This is
barely
yeah.
some,
wearing anything? Was it Mila Jovovich?
yeah,
Yeah, they do make Jill like, quote unquote sexier in the sequels, like especially in
Oh, she
the
had a
original
tube
version of
top in
3.
RE3, but
The
they
tube
gave her a
top and the
regular shirt.
skirt. Yeah.
Oh man, it was this whole thing. They had to change the camera angles in remake because they gave the outfit with the skirt to Jill, and they had to make sure that you could never see up her skirt no matter where the
Well, no,
camera
they
went.
gave her like a short skirt combo in the remake
Oh,
of
that's
3.
good.
Yeah, so you can't see anything.
Oh man,
That's
that's
fine.
not
why
what I
not just
understood.
give her an appropriate
Well,
outfit?
no,
She was supposed to have the outfit from RE3.
no, it makes sense to me just because well, her basic costume in 3 isn't very revealing. Like she's just wearing it looks like their regular clothes, right? Also, she wasn't on duty. She was basically fired already from the police force
Well, yeah,
at
because it
that
turned
point.
out the chief was in on it. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, he's like some weird serial
Is
killer.
that the spoiler
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Oh yeah.
regardless, Jill's been fired by the third game
Um,
by the patriarchy
And
because
then
that Chief
like
Irons was a douchebag.
Umbrella, in an effort to get rid of all the witnesses, creates a giant monster and sends it into the middle of a populated area to very loudly and obviously murder a bunch of people to cover up the
It is
remote
one of the
incident.
worst cover-ups of all time.
It knocks down a fucking building. It's like bursting out of walls and shit. And it's like there's two witnesses it's even going after. It's like Umbrella. It's
Umbrella's
Yahtzee
the
again. He
worst.
says they're more dedicated to being evil than they are to anything else.
No, but see, that's actually like part of the story is that they're so bad at what they do. And it's just a disaster for everybody involved. Because in two, it really is. They set like a squad of people in the opening to try to cover it
Mhm.
up by taking the G virus, and then they just shoot the dude who was carrying the virus, and it lands in the water supply, and they made it like 10 times worse.
So it's just like it's just comedy is what you're getting at,
Yeah,
like
Umbrella's like an evil Bond villain, and well,
Honestly,
I
by
mean,
the
if you really think about it, Resident Evil is like a satire on the corporations, like corrupt
they
corporations
get a
that are
little on the
incompetent.
nose in RE2 remake where Leon is just like, wait a second, they can't just build a secret lab in the sewers. The city owns the sewers. And
In
and Ada
RE5, they definitely get into it where they're like, corporations are ruining the world. I'm like, oh, I mean, you're not wrong, but
Ada just goes like, welcome to corporate America, Leon. And it's like, yeah, no. I guess I believe that the company could just buy off everyone. And then like Leon is so naive in that game. He's just like, I can't wait till the FBI raids this place.
aw, how cute.
Yeah, well, I
He's
mean,
the best.
he's a 21-year-old who's just
I know.
starting his first job, basically,
Leon
just got
is
out of police
ridiculously
academy.
young. All the characters are ridiculously young, except for Barry, who I swear to God it says he's 30 at the beginning.
No, he's 38. 38,
Like
39.
everybody's super young because it gives you everyone's age and blood type for some reason at the beginning of this game. Do you
Well,
remember that,
'cause it's
Jessica?
isn't it a Japanese game?
Yeah,
That would
it's a
make sense, the
Japanese
blood
game.
type.
Yeah. It's like how is like apparently Jill's ex Delta Force and she's 23. Like it's
They they
possible, but
they retcon it later as because I mean, they don't accept female, at least at the time for sure, they didn't accept women into the Delta Force.
maybe in the far-flung future of 1998 they will.
No, they well, you mean maybe, but, essentially it's just retconned as she was so good, and I mean, she is amazing if you see the sequels, and, so, like, she was so good that we wanted to train her or something, is basically
I
what
mean,
their
she's the
excuse is.
master of unlocking,
She's the
so
master
yeah.
at many
Unlocking.
things
Oh god. Now
later
here's a
on.
question that Ariel posed to me. Are the Resident Evil games pro cop or anti cop? Because judging from
I feel
Resident Evil
like they're
2, very
anti-cop.
anti cop.
I
Because
would
like
say they are anti-cop.
even in the first one, Wesker turns out to be evil, and then in the next one, my God, the police chief is a serial killer.
Okay, Connor, I would totally say that these games are actually anti-cop because our characters only become more effective when they renounce being police officers and go rogue and make their own nonprofit that fights bioterrorism.
Mhm.
Leon, though, I love him so much. Does he ever
Leon
meet?
also does not want to work for the government. He got blackmailed into doing it to save Sherry.
Does Leon know Jill? Have they ever met?
I don't maybe on a professional basis, but they've
I
never
want to
been shown
see
to
Leon
interact.
interacting with the other characters. I know he's not even in the first game, but I love him. He's a precious boy.
He is the most popular main character in the series.
Honestly, it's because of RE4. He's just now he is a himbo, but he's a lovable himbo, not like Chris.
But they brought him back in RE4 because he was so popular. People love
Yeah.
Leon. Leon's
Oh
great.
God.
I'm just sad that they made him into an alcoholic later on.
Oh, I don't want to experience
Jesus!
that.
No, no. So Chris is an alcoholic in RE6, and Leon he already had a slight drinking problem even when he was 21, because the original reason stated for why he didn't go to work on the right day was because he got drunk the night his girlfriend broke up with him, and then
That's fair.
he had a hangover during the entirety of RE2.
Oh
Poor
god.
guy, poor guy.
Don't.
That's
And then
ridiculous.
in the newest CG Resident Evil movie where Chris and Leon team up with Rebecca, Leon is become an alcoholic because he's like, "Man, I've been fighting for like 20 years, nothing fucking changes." It was
Wait,
kind
so
of
is he
sad.
like 40 in the new movie?
In the CG one, it's set in like 2016,
Oh
so he's
no.
like 41 or something.
Nobody ever looks
Mhm.
older in this world. Like, does
No,
Rebecca still look
he
like a
would have
little girl?
I already sent you the photo of her as like a 30 something year old professor. Yeah, she looks pretty young though.
Oh, Rebecca. She's cute. Like, honestly, Rebecca's a fun character. I kind of like her better than Barry because you don't get to play as Barry and you can play as Rebecca.
Yeah, she's a lot
Mhm.
better in RE0. She's kind of a badass in that one. Even if Billy is a better fighter. But yeah, as far as our so who do we prefer, Rebecca or Barry for our support character in
I
this
like
game?
Rebecca as support, but I kind of like Jill better than Chris as like player character. Can we just have like Jill and Rebecca together? I know we can't, but I'd
Can
like
we
that.
have Rebecca and Barry together?
No, get out of
No,
here,
there is
remake.
a non-canon, in RE5 when you play Mercenaries mode with the Gold Edition, which is, like, the complete version, you can do co-op where you have Rebecca and Barry team up.
Reberry is the name for the team,
Yep, sounds good to me.
or Barabecca. No, Reberry is better.
I don't know, it's just funny playing the first game and then remembering that in the sequels, they're gonna be punching boulders and doing somersaults and shit.
Oh, Chris.
And Leon does some crazy shit in RE4 and 6 too.
Oh my God, Leon is the best. Leon is
Yeah.
the best. There's a
Jessica,
part
you
where,
never played, RE4?
Mm-mm.
oh
Okay.
my
This
God.
is the first time I played Resident Evil at all.
See, RE4 is very, very different. Like, I'd never played any of them except the fourth one, so I wasn't ready for what these ones were like.
That's
But they're
because
super
RE4
cool.
is a parody. It's like a self-parody of Resident Evil.
It's like Ramon
Mm.
Salazar. He's a little person that dresses like Napoleon, and he runs into
Fuck.
this castle full of, yeah.
But see, the game's ridiculous, and yet I can still take it seriously as like a
Well, it's
horror
because
action
Leon
game.
takes everything very seriously that's happening.
Well, not exactly. I mean, remember when he's like, "Sounds like an alien invasion to me," when the
Well,
guy's
it is an
talking about
alien
spreading
invasion.
religion?
He's
Yeah,
right.
it is, because the guy's like, "Wouldn't you say?" What Sadler's like, "Wouldn't you say that it's a wonderful way to propagate one's faith?" And Leon's response is the alien invasion line. Or when he's
Leon.
like, "Hey, so what? Does he say at the
He goes,
beginning
"Where's
when the
everybody going? Bingo?"
bingo?"
Like a church bell rings and all of the
Uh,
villagers like shamble off. And he goes, "Where's everyone going? Bingo?"
yeah, I so back to RE1 though. I Chris is not nearly as the
Yeah.
male
Chris
protagonist of the series. He's
sucks.
not nearly as charming as
Like
Leon.
honestly, if there weren't Leon to compare Chris to, I might be like, "Ah, I guess Chris is okay." But like Jill's fun. I like Jill a lot.
Chris
Um,
is good for like the shit he gets up to, like his actual actions, but as a character, he's kind of boring.
Mm.
and he also has fewer item slots, which
Well, it's not an issue in the sequels, like Code Veronica,
I like having
but
item
uh,
slots.
but yeah, I prefer the attaché case. That'd be nice.
Oh yeah. In a Resident Evil 4, you have an attaché case that every item takes up a certain amount of space, and you have to like fit them all in. It's like almost like a puzzle, like a Tetris type thing.
It's a much more fun inventory than prior
Like
RE titles.
Yeah.
kind of like wait for like Fallout.
Oh no, much
Like
better than that. Like
I've
this
never
is
played
it's
Fallout.
almost like Tetris.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter how
mm.
heavy
It's
stuff
not
is.
about weight, it's just about how you can fit it in your briefcase basically.
Like an herb takes out 2
Oh.
blocks, and a gun takes up like the space of the gun, so you can fit squeeze the
And
herb in
you
next
can
to the gun.
rotate them to make them fit better. So
Yeah.
Oh, so it
it's a
legit is like
yeah,
Tetris.
it's
Yeah.
an organization game essentially. It's very satisfying.
And you can buy bigger and
Mm.
bigger cases from the very shady salesman who lives on the island.
What you buying? Do you imagine him in RE1? He's just
Yeah.
in different corners of the mansion, and he's just like, not enough cash, stranger, or
Oh
something like
god.
that.
And then so like Resident Evil 4, you actually have to collect money from enemies that you take down and use it to buy items, and it's like that would be so out of place. It's already pretty out of place in Resident Evil 4, because like where the hell is this guy going? Why is he
Yep.
inside every enemy stronghold selling things?
So, so RE4 major shift in the future of the series because gameplay wise, like you said, Connor, this first game is a lot like a Metroidvania.
Is you kind
You
of you explore, you use items to progress,
you get new items that make it easier to fight enemies.
and it
Except
has
unlike Metroidvania, they're limited.
but it has what I call an inverse difficulty curve, a lot like Zelda Breath of the Wild or Metroid itself, where you start out very weak, not really able to do anything, and then by the end of the game, you're strong enough to just like dispatch those early enemies with almost no problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, those chimeras were kind of annoying though at
Oh
the
yeah, I
end.
hated the chimeras. I kept dying to them. Even in remake, I kept dying to them because I didn't want to waste my ammo. And then they added this ridiculous thing in remake where you had to take fuel for the power system back into the maze, and if you got attacked by a chimera, you would get shaken and it would explode and you'd blow up. And it
Thank God
was
that's not in the first game. But
I
as
know
far as the hunters were are a cool enemy. I
I
like them.
bazookaed the chimeras as Jill. The chimeras are the ones that hang on the ceiling, Jessica. They never tell you their name, but you know those guys.
Mhm.
I ran past them as Chris, but I just bazookaed them as Jill because I didn't like
Don't they
Jill
tell
has a
you on the
bazooka.
slides?
No, they're not on the slides. The other ones are all on the slides. The chimeras aren't.
Oh, except
Do
the
you, do you
chimeras?
think
Oh,
that the
okay.
chimeras were just a reference to The Fly with Jeff Goldblum? because they
Maybe.
are fly human mutants.
Is that what they are?
Yep, they're
Are
fly.
they?
You can definitely tell in remake, but even in the first game, they're half
I thought they
human,
were
half
monkeys.
flies. No, they're flies.
They look like
No,
monkeys.
essentially they're fly human hybrids where the wings are too weak to fly, but they can still crawl around on walls.
Okay, because remember the note says
Yeah.
that the new monster looks like a gorilla with no skin. I thought it was talking about them.
Now
I
they're
thought I was
they're
talking about them too.
now they're fly
Like high
human
key.
hybrids. Yeah.
The hunters suck. They
They're
got
also
half
rotting,
human.
which is why they never ended a sequel because Umbrella deemed them a failure.
Mm,
But I do like
Yeah.
how they twitch and move around.
Like
That's
honestly,
cool.
the part
mm.
at the end where you have to run out before everything blows up, that's very Metroid-esque. That's how
Oh,
Metroid
it
is.
is definitely.
And then that same thing is in Resident Evil 2. I forget if it was in
It's in
3.
basically every Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I
Like that
guess
the
the first
finale
blows
is an
up for
escape with an explosion.
yeah.
I was really annoyed with the last battle. It took me forever, and then Connor, before we all started, said that like we didn't even have to like fight it at all.
Yeah, it's on a timer.
So
If you last long enough, you just get a rocket launcher. Here's the thing. I thought it worked that same way in Resident Evil 2, so I tried the same thing, and the timer ran out and I died, and I was like, "What?" So, it doesn't work that way in Resident Evil 2, and in fact, I had to replay the entire last segment of Resident Evil 2, so that I had enough ammo when I got to the boss, because I wasted it all thinking that I was gonna be able to just wait out the boss. And the thing
Well,
is, like, luckily, what I do is every time I save a new slot, so I don't ever save over. Um, like if I have to go back to a previous save, I don't have to restart the whole game because I'm just so
mm,
paranoid about saving with too little ammo and being
No,
messed up.
I live on the edge and only use one save file.
Oh no, I would have had to have redone all of Resident Evil 2 if I'd done that. I gotta use all of the files. The game gives them to
oh
you.
my god. See, that's the thing. Like, just going back to the fucking box. It's just and the doors. Why can't we just open the door and just go into a
It has
room?
to
Why do we
load the
need a
next room.
scene with
It
the
has
door?
It's a loading screen. It's loading the next room. Like a lot of this gameplay is based almost entirely on technical limitations. Like the reason the camera is the way it is because of the
Mm,
way graphics work on the PS1. The reason for
mm,
the doors is because of loading times on the PS1. It's
mhm,
But see, I think that it worked to the game's favor because obviously we find it annoying, and I'm glad that in the DS version I can just skip the door animations completely.
oh thank God.
But
mhm.
but obviously, like people remember these things about the game, like they're very associated very heavily with Resident Evil or the
Luigi's
door
Mansion does the same
animations.
door thing, and I didn't get that it was a reference
And now
until
you know that it's a reference to Resident Evil.
because like Resident Evil remake came out like the very next year on the GameCube. But
Mhm.
honestly, that and Zero were the only 2 games that the Resident Evil exclusivity deal worked on because fucking Resident Evil 4 came out
Yeah,
later
they
that
were
year.
Nintendo exclusives for a long time. They eventually got ported to Wii as exactly the same game, but with optional motion controls. But
Mhm.
but essentially they were Nintendo exclusives until like 2015 or 2014 when they did the HD remake.
But like their
Well, HD
Capcom
remaster.
deal, because like Capcom's like Resident Evil's always going to be on GameCube from now on. And then they released Zero and Remake in like the same year, 2002.
And they
And
sold
then
badly.
nothing until 2005 where they released Resident Evil 4, and then later that same year they released it on PS2. And then like the Switch came out, or sorry, the Wii came out in 2006. So like the entire lifetime of the GameCube was like nothing, and then an almost exclusive. Like Capcom did them dirty,
To be fair, Resident Evil 4 was better on GameCube than PS2.
but it had like an extra
Mm.
mode on PS2 apparently.
Yeah, it had separate ways, which
Yeah.
is good, but I mean graphically it was a lot worse.
Yeah, well, how come Ada still had her skirt in separate ways, but in Assignment Ada she couldn't have it because they said the
Well,
animation was too
Assignment Ada is not canon.
bad? All right,
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know why she even had a different. I mean, maybe like you said, it's a technical limitation at the time. They couldn't get it to work.
that's what they said at the time.
It's probably an excuse because it works fine on PS2.
Yes, that's the thing that I was like, but I thought the PS2 was less advanced. I felt very betrayed by that because I didn't have much as a GameCube kid. Okay, this was like the one big exclusive. Come on, guys. Like ever since N64, there have always been like just a slow trickle of games for Nintendo consoles, with the
Mhm.
exception of handhelds, which usually have a
But
lot.
see, Connor, you were lucky though in a way because the Nintendo GameCube versions of RE2 and RE3 are like the best versions of that game. of those games.
Played them on GameCube though.
Well, you never played them though at the time, but
Yeah, aren't they just
you
straight ports
potentially
of
could
the
have.
PS2
They
versions?
they are straight ports, but obviously the resolution's a little higher,
Because I feel
and
like that's a little bit disingenuous, and that
you
they
can
released
skip
like
the
a
load. You can skip the door
oh,
animations.
that's cool. But they released like a full-on remake with better graphics of Resident Evil 1, and then released just straight ports of Resident Evil 2 and 3. And it's like,
To be
okay.
fair, they were $20. They were released for $20 each, and they used the cover for the PS1 versions.
I guess I've been burned too many times by Nintendo making re-releases cost full price.
Well, that's because Nintendo fucking sucks. Like,
They
we still buy
do.
from them, but they suck because Capcom released straight ports for $20.
I mean, Capcom are the real heroes here. Honestly, they're great at almost every genre. Like Ace Attorney is rad as hell. Their fighting games are great. Their
Their
horror games are cool.
brawlers are good, like
They've
that,
got
Dungeons
multiple
and
zombie
Dragons one.
franchises.
Dead Rising is a good 3D
Remember we played
brawler,
through the Capcom beat 'em up bundle, like every
and
single game
almost
in it.
all of them were winners, basically.
Yeah. I mean that the one that was almost almost Dungeons and Dragons but wasn't. What was it called? Like King of Dragons. That one wasn't so hot. But the
You
other ones
know
were all
you know
pretty
what?
rad.
I would love them to do a full-on 2D brawler for Resident Evil using the designs for Jill from Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
I think that's the best Jill's ever looked.
It is a really nice design.
Like when I see the pixel art they do of these characters, I'm just kind of sad because like the polygonal art is not anywhere near there.
Well, I mean, they look really good now in the
Oh
RE
yeah, they do
engine.
now.
And RE5 and 6 look great.
Except I don't really like how Claire looked in RE2 remake. They made her look like I keep saying she looks like Ellen Page, and you don't agree, but
She does not look like
she
Ellen Page. I mean,
totally
they're
does
both
to me.
brunettes, but yeah, that's about it. Their only similarity is that they're both brunette white women. That's about it.
Well, my horrible secret is that I'm actually face blind, so I basically recognize people by their hair.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
All right, so let's move on to closing thoughts on Resident Evil. I mean, I would recommend this.
I absolutely loved this game. Loved, loved, loved. I'm playing all the sequels now. I'm 1,000% a Resident Evil fan, and I recommend play it without a guide because I played it with a guide. That was the coward's way. Playing without a guide is more fun, at least for the sequels.
All
And I
right, what
played
about
Remake
you?
without a guide, and that was fine.
What about you,
I think
Jessica?
the game is definitely I think it's worth it for sure to play it. Absolutely. There's nothing like particularly that I found like super like ugh about it. I think just my only annoyance again is just the tank controls. I just felt very slow when I'm just used to playing games where I can move particularly fast or particularly a one way. So that's just my biggest frustration. But other than that, it's worth the play for sure.
I might recommend Remake over emulating slash playing on real PS1 hardware, the original.
Mhm.
Just because Remake is first of all easier to get a hold of. It's on the PS4, it's on the Switch, it's on
Mhm.
everywhere. And second of all, it just kind of looks nicer. It doesn't have the god awful voice acting, which I think adds to the charm, but might scare people away. And it also, in the HD versions that are on modern systems, there's the option of doing analog. So like maybe that could be the recommended version, but I do feel like you're missing out on something by not seeing it as it originally was.
Right. No, like I think like for the most part, like I said, the puzzles and all that, like I'd really just figured it out on my own for the most part without having to use the
None of
guide
that
really.
piano bullshit like in Silent Hill.
Instead, instead you just have a character play the piano for you.
Oh yeah.
That's a little silly. Like I'm kind of glad I didn't do Chris's run through then because that just it just
Yeah,
seemed like
Chris
too
is
much
dumb.
extra work.
I don't know what
Uh,
happens if you say no to Rebecca. Does the game just like not
I'm
keep
assuming you
going?
just have to you have to eventually say yes, I'm assuming. So I see it's kind of pointless to
The
not
one
have
thing that
her.
might be worth bringing up is like your interactions with your partner. Like nobody online seems to be sure, but there's ways to trigger different scenes, different cutscenes with your partner and with Richard, the guy who has the snake bite. And
mm,
it just kind of seems a little random, but like sometimes Barry will save you, sometimes he won't. Sometimes he'll give you the bazooka, sometimes he'll give you acid rounds instead.
mm,
And it's interesting. And then like depending on what you say to Barry or to Rebecca in certain scenes, sometimes they'll straight up die. And it's interesting how the story can change depending on how you play the game.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the replayability.
yeah, I think another thing too, just if you're expecting it to be like the movie, it is not, and I'm actually kind of annoyed that it is not like the
Did
video
you
games
like the
at
movie?
all. I
Or
did look, I like the movies because, like, I'm all about, like, having a female, like, heroine, so, like, that's why I genuinely enjoyed the movies, but now, like, just rewatching it and then after playing this game, and then I've just been kinda, like, looking at the different characters that you guys have been talking about, not necessarily, like, playing, like, Resident Evil 2 and forward, but just briefly looking at stuff, it's just like, this wasn't a bad plot line. Why deviate it from the plot line so much?
oh, because he
Just
wanted to
that
do his own thing. The one thing that I
uh,
don't
the
get is that people
the
say like,
director and writer, the what's
yeah,
his
Paul
face?
W.S. Anderson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy.
isn't it weird that he fell in love with Mila Jovovich supposedly while filming the movie? Because she's
Yeah.
like a void of charisma during that entire movie series.
And he's like, I've written some new lines or some new scenes. In this one, you wear a leather catsuit, and this one, you're naked.
Yeah, at a certain point, it just comes off as he wants to see his wife in different like outfits.
And it's just like she won't wear it in the bedroom, but if I write it in the Resident
Yeah,
Evil
isn't
script,
it? It's so weird, right? Because
Mhm.
Jill Valentine has a way like just Jill herself has so much personality compared to Alice from those fucking movies.
And honestly, like, if you wanna talk about who has more, like, personality, you could argue that it would be, Michelle Rodriguez's character. Definitely has more character than Mila
what's her
Jovovich's
name?
character.
Yeah,
Rain.
and she dies,
Rain.
right?
She dies at the end, yeah,
Okay. I never got that
technically.
people say that female-led action movies don't sell, and then there's been like 7 Resident Evil movies and 6 Underworld movies. So it's like you really just mean that Angelina Jolie and Salt didn't do well. Like I don't
I
know.
have really enjoyed Salt.
I never saw it. I
Oh, that
wouldn't
didn't
know.
do very well. But like the Resident Evil movies and the Underworld movies did crazy well. They had a million sequels, and I don't get why people say
I don't
female-led
understand
action movies don't do
why.
well.
I would argue that Salt is a way better movie in general
Well, yeah,
compared to Resident Evil.
it's like that nobody's down on Salt. I'm just saying that female-led action movies do great. It's just that the one with Angelina Jolie didn't do well, and people use that as an excuse.
That's stupid because that movie is way better, I feel like, just in general. I don't know if it's because she's not fucking naked half of the movie or majority of the movie. Maybe that's
Is
why people
Alice
are all
naked for the movie?
She is
for this
naked at the
first
end.
one. She is naked, like in the beginning and at the end.
Yeah, she's naked repeatedly throughout these movies.
Yeah.
She's even cloned eventually. Like it
Mhm.
gets stupid, like incredibly stupid. But anyway,
Yeah.
so the game itself though, I would highly recommend it. Especially
Mhm.
because I do think that playing this and then playing the remake, a lot of the things they do in the remake are really references to the first game so that
Mm.
returning players are like that wasn't like that or what the fuck did they do here? Like like I thought that this would work, but now it doesn't or it actually made the situation worse.
Oh yeah, if you put the jewels, the correct jewels in the tiger's eye, the way it was in the first game, you get a rain of snakes coming down on you. You have to put a yellow jewel instead of a red jewel in the tiger's eye.
Yes, but I thought those were fun moments. And the sharks are a lot freakier in the remake.
Are
That's
they?
for sure. They look like they're rotting.
It's like the
I
sharks. I
would've
feel like they got bored of zombies and they just added in random other monsters.
Hey, I don't see that as a
right.
bad thing.
I don't
I like
well, then
variety.
again, they're technically dead, like
I
a
got
living
stuck.
dead thing.
I got stuck
I
on the
was like,
shark puzzle, in the
"Why
remake.
is the shark still alive if it's out of water?" But then I was like, "Well, it's technically not alive at
Well,
all, I
it's
guess."
thrashing around. I think it's drowning or whatever
Yeah,
the
and then
word.
if you hit it once, it dies immediately.
Oh, really? I didn't want to waste my bullets on it.
I
Well,
didn't wanna waste my bullet
I
either, I was
used the
already, like,
I used the
away from
knife,
the door.
yeah, to test it out, and they die in one hit. So
Yes,
yeah,
I didn't carry the knife at that point because it was just, like, pointless to even fucking
yeah, the knife is
You only
worthless.
have so many spaces to fit stuff in.
The knife would be better. Well, it wasn't an issue for me because on DS the knife is always on you. It's just a button press. Like in
Ah,
RE4, Connor, you just hold it out. You just hold a button,
Oh yeah,
and
I
you
would
can
keep
start
hitting the
slashing.
gun button instead of the knife button by mistake and wasting bullets on things I should have used my knife on.
Yeah.
But that's my own fault.
All right, so highly recommended.
Oh,
Mhm.
1000% highly recommended. Should I see the movie, Jessica? Will it just make me mad?
Eh,
Like, for like the Mario movie versus the Mario game, is it that level of different?
I mean, you liked the Mario movie though, so
I did.
maybe
But it also, even if it had bizarre and warped versions of the characters, it still had the characters from the game in it.
that is a fair point, I guess.
And this seems like some weird Alice in Wonderland riff where like they're fighting the Red Queen. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
even
It's
it's
seem
pretty
like
just
it's the
weird.
same thing. Like it seems like Paul W.S. Anderson just had a movie he wanted to make and they would only let him make it if it was part of a franchise. So he just like said, "Oh, it's Resident Evil now." Same with Monster Hunter because
well,
that doesn't look
ac
anything like the game.
according to I think fuck, what was it? I was reading it earlier. I think
IMDb.
George Romero was actually supposed to do it, the first one, but then they got yeah.
Yeah, I think he wrote a script
I mean,
for it.
honestly, like the lab from Day of the Dead, like the lab in Resident Evil is a lot like that. Like the underground lab they're in that movie.
Mhm. Yeah, it was well, according to Wikipedia, keep this with a grain of salt, people. Yeah, that George Romero was the one to direct and write it, and his script was rejected.
How like the sheer hubris to hire the zombie guy to do your zombie movie and then be like, we didn't like it.
Also, Resident Evil, with like Shinji Mikami specifically said George Romero was a huge influence. So they
Yeah,
got the guy who was the original influence, and they're just like, nah,
we don't like it.
screw you, George Romero.
It's like honestly, let the man make his zombie movies. Land of the
Yeah.
Dead wasn't great, but it was better than a lot of other zombie movies.
Oh, some of his
Mhm.
last ones sucked, like Survival of the Dead
I
and
didn't even
Diary
see
of the
that
Dead.
one. Diary
Yeah,
of the Dead
but
was lame.
but but his original stuff and some of his other movies are pretty good. So give the man
The
credit.
one thing is,
Rest in
when I saw
peace,
Dawn of the
George.
Dead as a kid, I thought I just like was too young to understand what was happening and I was remembering it wrong. Then I watched it again and no, there's like no exposition for a lot of that movie and they don't really explain to you what's happening. So it's
Hmm.
like, no, it is super confusing at the beginning. I wasn't just a stupid kid. Like,
Yeah, I would say that Resident Evil 1 is Night of the Living Dead influenced, and then something like Dead Rising is definitely just a knockoff
oh, they
Dawn of the
had to
Dead.
put a disclaimer on Dead Rising that it had nothing to do with Dawn of the Dead. Like if you buy the original box, it's got that written on it.
I
Mm.
have the original box, so I should check one of
Stubbs the
these
Zombie
days.
was very Dawn of the Dead inspired too. There's even a part in a mall. Stubbs the Zombie's fun. Have you ever heard of that one?
I played
Mm-mm.
it. I used to own it.
Oh my
It's pretty
god.
good.
You could bite people, Jessica, in that game and turn them into zombies, and then you could like you had basic commands you could give the zombie horde.
It also ran on the Halo engine, whatever that engine was called, and that's why the controls are so similar
Yeah,
to
they just
Halo.
called it the Halo engine on the box. I don't know if there was a name for it besides Halo
Yeah.
engine.
Mm.
It's like the Unreal engine. Like I feel like Unreal has been completely forgotten and the engine is more notable now.
Mm.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, RE amazing. The first game's I give it a nice 8.5 out of 10. It is memorable, quality.
I'm gonna go further than that. I feel like I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but there are parts about it that are annoying. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it 10 out of 10 because my God, this game has monopolized my life. It got me
And
such.
it's highly influential too.
Yeah.
Historical value is mega high on this.
Oh yeah. Like this is basically what horror games were until it reinvented horror games again in 2005. And then like Dead
Mhm.
Space is apparently just straight up Resident Evil 4.
And despite the B movie level plot and the bad acting, a lot of people took it more seriously than like Phantasmagoria as like
Oh,
mature subject
Phantasmagoria.
matter.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. At least nobody, there's no sexual assault. And, well,
Oh my god, I
it's
know,
Yeah.
like,
implied in
ugh.
Resident Evil 2, I guess, but only implied.
Yeah, this is like good horror movie stuff, you know? Like
Yeah.
you
We did not need to see that. Oh my god, I'm still mad about
Yeah,
that.
but
Like,
but okay, Silent Hill is like art house horror film. Resident Evil is like the movie you go to a theater, you watch it, you have a good time, and it even becomes a classic. You know,
mhm.
that's what Resident Evil 1 is.
Honestly, though, I'd say Resident Evil is like a George Romero type of like, they're not dumb movies, but they're not trying to fuck with you the way art house movies are. They're not David Lynch just doing nonsense.
I would say they're
Oh my
effective. Yeah,
goodness.
they are effectively made movies. And
Yeah.
that's what this is, an effectively made game.
Just I'm still on the movie thing, like, cause that's, again, my first reference. I'm just like, how do you not, like, accept that's just weird.
I
That's weird
know.
to
It's like
me.
honestly, the more I hear about this movie, the angrier I'm getting about it. And I'm trying to be chill because
Well,
like
well,
honestly, like I have to show some company loyalty. But still,
I mean, didn't they just fund it basically?
well, yeah, well, Screen
Yeah.
Gems is a subsidiary. It's a whole thing. But
All right. Well, anyway, speaking of movies and but films that won't make you angry, Sweet Home is our bonus round.
oh yeah,
Sweet Home, the 1989 film,
Mhm.
yeah.
and that movie. I have not played the game. I don't think any of us have played the game yet,
No, we
right?
have not. We watched a little bit of
No.
footage together. Other than the fact that it's set in a spooky house, there doesn't seem to be much of a connection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Aside from being the inspiration for remaking that basic idea, the template of haunted mansion or scary spooky mansion
Spooky,
Mhm.
spooky
and
house.
surviving the night, that is it's not really
I mean,
there's
the
no
characters,
bioweapons, you know.
I didn't love the characters, I didn't love the premise, but my god, the gore effects in that movie.
Oh,
Absolutely.
you know what's one thing I would say, reminds me of Resident Evil, even
What?
though it's about ghosts? The fact that the ghost essentially mutates at the end into a giant monster thing.
But that was kind of an
Mhm.
original for the Resident Evil sequels thing. That didn't really happen in the first one.
Mhm.
But it definitely did in RE2. But,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But, okay, so the film, is about, a film crew. They want to get footage of what was it? A painting, right?
And they
A
want to
fresh
restore these
yeah.
paintings that this famous
They're just
artist made,
trying to restoring the paintings, yeah.
It's been
and his
abandoned for
mansion's been
30
locked up.
years. The
And the
mayor's like,
mayor, he's wearing
"Oh, yeah."
goggles for reasons we never find out. He just shows up, he's wearing a white suit and goggles.
And, the assistant's like, "No, we don't let you film in the mansion. It's been closed for 30 years. We don't care that you're a film crew," but then the mayor's right there, and he's like, "Oh, a film crew? That's great." And then he tells his assistant like, "Okay, look, if they get the footage, then and it turns out that it's not haunted or anything and nothing bad happens, then it's a new tourist place, right? Like a bunch of tourists will come just to look at the paintings. And if it turns out it is haunted and something bad happens to them, then we still get tourists. So it's a win-win for the town." So this
The mayor
mayor
fucked up.
is yeah, he's kind of duplicitous, I'd say. So yeah, kind of a douchebag if you really think about it, considering the way he thought he didn't really care about the film crew. But anyway, essentially five people, right?
Yeah.
Uh go to the mansion.
And then the main
Uh
girl conveniently manages to save the life of an elderly gas station attendant.
Though that happens a little later.
Yeah, but he owes
It's
her a life
rather
debt.
dull up to that point, really.
And it's like, honestly, that guy would have just fucking killed himself working ordinarily that day. Like, he is so goddamn accident prone. He, like, thank God she was there.
But he turns out to actually kind of know what's going
And
on in
because
the
he owes her a
mansion.
life debt, he comes to help. And
Yeah,
for his
and then
trouble, oh my God.
oh boy.
My
But
god.
before that, we have one of the so one of the film crew people, right, is named Oscar, and she's there to like help with the repainting, to fix it up.
She also
Wh-
dresses like a
Mhm.
nun for some reason.
Yeah, she's got a unique style. She gets sort of possessed by the ghost of the woman that's haunting the mansion, and so she digs up the corpse of the ghost's child, which is rotting. Just it was buried near the forest, right?
Mhm.
And all the spooky shit really starts
Not
happening.
even then, it's another fucking 20 minutes
You know,
before
well,
that.
yeah, but that's when the evil is really like coming into full force. But eventually, the camera guy gets fucking melted,
And then,
which was
like,
pretty cool.
friggin' Asuka, like, beats him to death with a wrench or some shit. Like,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
asking for help, like, Jesus. But then she also immediately gets killed too. So,
She gets
If
melted into
you're
goo.
and then he
all
kills
about
me.
the prosthetic, the special effects or whatever, like old school effects, this is definitely a
Oh,
movie
it's
to
amazing
watch.
what they do. Like,
It
honestly, I'm
is.
not sure how they did some of the effects because, like, this transition from, like, actor to prop is so seamless in some of the scenes.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's great. But then, like, the the dad and his daughter from the film crew and the one other member of the film crew, they're out of the mansion and they go back in to look for their friends, but we know their friends are dead. Like, Jesus, you could have just left right then. And then the daughter
Yeah.
gets kidnapped, so they have to stay for the daughter. And then it's a whole thing. And then the dad is like a totally useless weenie and he like hides in an armoire for most of the movie.
For the last, like,
Literally.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Last 20 minutes of the movie. And then the old man turns out to be well, he
He
would have
might
been
have been a painter
helpful.
in disguise, depending
Yeah,
on
yeah.
who you
In the
listen
video
to.
game, it's implied that he is, Ichiro, I think, was the name of the painter, and that was
Ichiro
his
Momura.
wife, right? That was his wife and his child, but that, she died after, the child died, and the ghost started killing kids, right?
Yeah, no, no, she killed kids when she was
Oh,
alive,
when
and an
she was
angry mob
alive.
came and
Yeah.
killed her. It's like
I
it's a very
see.
similar to a Freddy Krueger situation, because he killed kids, and then an angry mob killed him, and then he just came back as an
She
even
was
eviler
she was
ghost
killing them because she wanted their ghost to come to help her baby,
to
right?
play
Like, to
with her
keep it
baby. She wanted
company?
playmates for her
Yeah,
baby.
that's pretty
She
Yeah.
killed
fucked.
kids. That's a bad reason for murdering children. There's not a good reason for murdering children, but like,
Yeah,
That's probably
unless they're an evil zombie or
it's like,
something,
what if
but
the
they're
child
already
had
dead.
bad vibes?
Yeah,
But yeah,
but,
and then like at the end of the movie, she ascends into heaven because she's at peace.
oh,
It's
yeah,
like,
that was
you still
bizarre.
like murdered a bunch of kids. Like,
it
maybe you
is a bit
shouldn't go to heaven.
strange.
Okay, regardless, the 3 main characters survive. So, whether she goes to hell or heaven, they made it out. It's the
Hooray for
one
them.
good thing. But not the old guy, because the old guy
Yeah, oh my
fucking
god, he gets the most
his
brutal
death
death
is the
scene I've
most
ever seen in a
amazing
horror
thing
film.
I've ever seen.
Like, he
It's
rescues the
first
daughter, but he doesn't even really, it's a fake
no,
ending.
it turns out she's a decoy,
And
right?
then as soon as he saves the daughter, he starts to melt. His skin melts off, and then his organs melt off, and then his bones start to dissolve, and then his bones crackle and fall. It goes on for like 10 minutes of this.
It is like
Yeah,
high key one of the coolest death scenes I've ever
And
it
then
seen.
was
like
an
it keeps
amazing
cutting to the
death, yeah.
hero going like, "Are you okay?" It's like, "No." And then
His
they don't
eyes
even
look like they're about to explode
he tells them to run away, and then they wait for him to
to watch him
entirely
die.
melt, and then they leave.
Well, they thought it was cool too, so they're just like, "Whoa."
Like, that was the
Like, at the point where
greatest.
he's a skeleton, there's like, "Yo, you might still make it."
And then the ghost turns into a weird monster with baby faces all over her body, which are presumably the
It
babies
was
that
a
she
really
killed.
good animatronic, but like we were talking before the podcast, when we watched the movie a week ago,
Mhm.
they did actually do reshoots. So that's why the original director of the film, has disowned it alongside a lot of his other films pre the horror film cure in the late 90s. Because I guess the guy who plays the hermit, like the dude at the gas station, the old man, he's
Mhm.
also a famous Japanese director, and he was the producer for this film, and I guess he took more creative control than the director felt comfortable with. Which is why in the home release, they redid some of the scenes and some of the special effects. So I'm not sure what the theatrical release looked like, because I don't think the theatrical release has ever been released in home media. So yeah, any
Truthfully
thoughts on that?
lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first one we saw was fine. I mean, I really love the effects, so if that was the big change, then I think they've changed it for the better.
And the guy who did the
Mhm.
effects was the main guy behind it did the effects for the original Exorcist.
Was he Japanese?
I think he was American. They actually flew him out to Japan to do it.
Yeah, see, that's what there's a genre in Japan called tokusatsu, which means like basically effects focused. And
Mhm.
Wikipedia calls this a tokusatsu horror film. But it's like the first couple monsters we see are literally just shadows and they are lame as hell. And I thought that's what we were in for most of the movie. But then it steps the fuck up at like the 1 hour mark and everything is so much
Yeah.
No,
better.
it's at the 46-minute mark because I rewatched the movie last night for Halloween. And yeah, it's at the 46-minute mark. It goes crazy.
And
I
it's like,
mean, let's consider, I mean, it was free to watch. You get game promo at the beginning and the end, yes?
remember
Right?
promo at
Am
the
I
end.
wrong?
Yeah, thankfully this movie is on YouTube. It's been on there for
Mhm.
years now,
You can't
and
get it legitimately in America,
yeah, in
so it's okay to
America,
watch it on YouTube.
yeah, it's the only
Mhm.
releases were on VHS and Laserdisc in Japan, but this has English subtitles, so that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool movie.
Absolutely. I
Like, I
feel
think
it.
it's worth your time, but just maybe skip the beginning. Like,
No, maybe just watch the beginning for the setup and then skip to like the 25-minute mark.
Or, you
because
could
we
just
don't
be
even get
playing
much
a
setup.
game on your
It
phone
just
by the
starts
time it gets to
in
the
medias
45.
res. Like, you don't really get any explanation for what's up with the mansion. It just starts with him asking the mayor for the keys to the
Well,
mansion.
I think like 25-minute mark's good because that's where you meet the old guy and he will show up later.
Oh yeah, and how about that song that he sings?
Oh my god. Okay, first off, people, we were watching this virtually, of course, respectively. So we're all watching it virtually, all on call. And I literally was like, what did you say, Connor? You said something about
Oh,
him.
you
He
said
looks like he's
it
about
gets
to
like really peppy
sing.
music in the background, and you said I'm waiting for somebody to start singing, and I said, "Oh no, someone does." And then when he actually started singing, I was like, "You thought I was joking."
It was pretty ridiculous. It was just like, "Oh, wow, we really do get fucking singing." You get it all, folks. You get a song, you get people dying, you get some comedic effect. It's pretty great as far as, like, the last 45 minutes.
For pure entertainment value, it's pretty high up there if you like horror films. I was satisfied. I wasn't even expecting it to be as violent as it ends up being.
Mhm.
Horrifically violent, and I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting that at all.
I wasn't either, like, that's it.
I
Like I
mean
said, one of the best death scenes I've ever seen,
I
for
mean, I
sure.
Yeah.
know we've kinda spoiled the fact that it is horrifically violent, but
But, like, why
but
would you watch it if it wasn't?
even just telling well, we were watching it for the historical value, but, even knowing that it's going to be violent, I still think people will be surprised at how violent it is
Yeah,
because
like, it is
everything
not.
leading up to that is not nearly that violent. Even
It's
the dead
very
baby.
like, I feel like, honestly, the fact that it has such a peppy tone in the beginning makes it better, because if it was just, like, grim the whole way through, you wouldn't feel so taken aback when it suddenly gets horrific.
Yeah, because the
Mhm.
first, like, 40 minutes, aside from some minor things with the possessed girl, well, Asuka, the film crew is just kinda palling around in the mansion. You know, like, they know each other, they're just trying to do their little film
And,
thing.
like, the daughter's trying to set up her dad with his coworker. It's
Yeah,
like,
and then
she's
it
she's a
goes
real wing
insane.
woman.
Yeah, but she ends up being the real hero of the film. The love interest to the dad, she's the real hero
Yeah.
because the dad disappears.
It's like,
He doesn't die, but he's like, "Eh."
you raised your daughter right when she's off trying to trying to get some for you.
That's
The
terrible.
dad calls her a bitch at one point.
Yeah,
He
I
says
feel
that
like
she's really bitchy, like
I feel like they must have translated that as more harsh than it was in Japanese because, like,
Yeah.
or maybe in Japanese it does mean that, but it's not viewed as harshly, in the way
I
you
think he
say
probably
it.
just said bossy or stubborn or something
Yeah,
like
because
that.
I know he
Yeah,
was
it just must have been a weird
yeah,
translation.
because he has, like, he seems to have a good relationship with his daughter, but it's kind of those, like, like, they're kinda, like, vitriolic buddies, basically, like, they make fun of each other. So, it didn't seem too bad,
It didn't seem malicious.
yeah, it
Again,
just seems,
I
like,
It's
humorous.
weird that he brought his daughter along on this business thing.
It makes
mean,
sense if he's trying to teach her the career path,
I
because
guess
he's
she
a
can't stay
producer.
with her mom because her mom is mysteriously
Well,
dead.
yeah, she died of illness or something.
Yeah,
a
somehow she died.
summer, so why wouldn't he take her with him, I guess? It's like it's in the summer because remember he was like, "Don't you have homework to do?" And she's like, "It's summer vacation."
You idiot.
So
Yeah,
Like, really?
I think the daughter mentions, "Ever since my dad died, he's gotten worse at his job, like, he
Ever
can't
since my
fucking."
dad died, he's
No,
gotten
ever
worse.
since my mo
My dad's
he's
been
like
so
a
bad at
zombie,
his
right?
job since he
He's a
died.
ghost now. No, no, it's ever since mom died, he's been
It's
worse
like
at
that
his job.
fucking Bill Cosby movie, Ghost Dad. Oh,
Oh, no. That was the big reveal, is actually he's a ghost, and he actually is the one who stopped the evil ghost.
oh god, it's like Sixth Sense. Spoilers.
I just get Casper the Friendly Ghost to stop this fucking shit or something.
Jesus.
That ghost just needed a hug.
We never really said everything exposed to the tyrant virus just kind of gets bigger and meaner, like plants, animals, but weirdly people turn into zombies. Like spiders get big and mean, snakes get big and mean, plants get big and mean, humans turn into zombies.
And in Sweet Home, ghosts just fucking melt you.
I know they don't fuck around.
You don't just, like, melt into goo, like, you're bleeding and your bones are melting and all this random shit.
And it's
Yeah.
like only 3 people die in that whole movie, but
But
my
they
god,
die horribly.
they die. Like, you watch Halloween I just watched Halloween, the Michael Myers movie last night, and, like, the body count of that movie is, like, 5, but, like, yeah, 5, but they're like, "Oh, I got cut once. Oh, no." And it's not anywhere at the level.
No, this movie was great. Well, I
Agreed.
wouldn't say as a movie it's not great. I would say
No,
it's
the
like a
special
solid
effects are great.
for pure entertainment, I
Mhm,
would have given it a 7.5 to 8. It's worth watching.
mhm, mhm.
It is a well-made movie, is for the
Very
time
dull
period.
for the beginning, it's just
Yeah, but
dull. And
it's
there's a
like
lot
a
of movies from the '80s that are not dull at the beginning. Like, look at,
yeah,
like,
true.
Terminators from the '80s, Repo Man. Like, I could list 80s movies all day. Freaking Back to the Future, that is entertaining the whole way through. It's got great effects. It's not gory and violent, but yeah.
And also, I wouldn't say that this is low budget because those special effects were obviously
Oh,
expensive.
yeah. Like,
It's like
it
they
looks
saved it
way
all for the
better
ending.
because
Yeah,
most Japanese movies, no offense to Japan, have really shitty special effects, but these effects were really good.
that's true. This movie was in theaters too.
Like, you look at, like, Machine Gun Girl or, like, even the live action anime movies they make, and they're god awful. Like, the Star Blazers movie, the Space Battleship Yamato movie, that was a big budget movie, and it looked terrible.
Isn't it weird though because there are people on YouTube with better special effects than a lot of modern Japanese films. It's really
Mm,
odd to me. Like they
it's
have no
true.
budget and they still look better.
I think it's because they have heart and passion.
Probably. They
The
probably
people
spent more
who are
time than
getting
the
paid
people getting
minimum
paid
wage to
for it.
make live action Cutie Honey are just like,
Live action
"Fuck
Full
it."
Metal Alchemist or something.
God, live action Gundam. Oh, that was so sad. I don't even know if you knew that existed, but it was so sad.
Yeah. However, I will say that I do enjoy the Japanese film industry quite a bit. When they make a good movie, they make a really
I
really
enjoy
good
Takeshi
movie.
Miike. Like, I
Even
don't
though a
really enjoy
lot
the
of his
film industry.
movies have bad effects though.
I know, but my god, his movies are so fun.
Sometimes they're charming though because the energy is so high, you
Like,
know?
I enjoy Takeshi Miike. I Hideaki Anno is on thin fucking ice.
For Evangelion and fucking waiting 10 years for the last
Well,
film in
I'm
that
talking about
series.
his live action work, but
Oh, but no, he's made some really good live
he did
action
Shin
movies.
Godzilla. He did Cutie Honey. Weirdly enough,
Well, Cutie Honey, I'm not gonna watch that because it does not look like my
I
kind
think
of
you
movie
end
at
up on a
all.
government watch list if you watch Cutie Honey,
Probably. So
especially
I
the
would
live action Cutie
but I
Honey.
would recommend his first live action movie. I'm going to look it up because the name escapes me. I think it's on YouTube actually. One sec. Live action films. His first movie in live action was called where was it? Love and Pop, which is an adaptation of a novel called Topaz 2 by Ryu Murakami, who I actually quite like his work. And that movie was about a high school girl who gets involved in compensated dating, which is essentially prostitution. And that was a really good movie, actually.
Odd themes about sexualizing teenage girls in Hideaki Anno's work.
Well, it's shown as a really negative thing in Love and Pop, though, so it fits with the plot. Also, I would also, even though, let's say, also going off topic, but Evangelion sexualizes those characters a lot. I mean, in the actual
When you're
show,
selling body
no, I
pillows and
know
sexy figurines, you can't
that's
be
what
like, "Well, in the actual show." Like,
that
it doesn't work that way.
unfortunately that does ruin it. Like if you just watch the show by itself, you can be like, oh, it's not portrayed as a good thing. But then I know that they're making like over $1 billion on this fucking merchandise. Like I don't know,
I
it's
mean, my
weird.
one argument is, like, they're just anime girls. The show, like, says, "Oh, they're 14." It's like, they look the same as the
But
adult
Connor,
characters.
like you said, you'll end up on a government watch list
I know, I
because
don't wanna go on a watch
it's
list
not
for
a good it's
Evangelion.
not a good
I don't
excuse.
even like Evangelion that much, and I love robot shows. I love Gundam. Gundam's amazing, but
Evangelion's hardly even a robot
it's
show.
more like Ultraman, you know? It's very similar, like, with the time limit and the
I will absolutely defend the last couple of episodes of Evangelion. Not the last two, but the last couple and
the
then the
last
movie.
couple are fine, it's the last 2 that are
No,
nonsense.
that's what I mean. The last two are nonsense, but I do love the movie that replaces those two. The End of Ava,
I haven't
that's
seen
a
that in
Mhm.
years. I remember it being
really
really
good movie.
messed up.
Oh, guess what Hideaki Anno is releasing in 2021?
Is it Evangelion
No, well,
4.4.4?
hopefully that releases in 2021, but I'm talking about Shin Ultraman.
Oh my god, that's what he always wanted to make, isn't it?
He's doing Shin Ultraman.
Because like Evangelion is basically already Shin Ultraman. Like, come on.
Okay, well,
It even starts with Shin too, even though it's not like a sequel to
you
anything.
think you
It's
think they'll do Shin Sweet Home?
I don't know.
Or is Resident Evil already Shin Sweet Home
I guess it is. Oh,
in a way?
Jessica, for those of us who have not been taking Duolingo Japanese lessons for months, Shin means new, and they usually use it
Mm,
for sequels. They call it
It
like Shin,
it's
whatever the
it
thing is.
it's like how with Super Nintendo we used like Super whatever, right?
Yeah, so
mhm,
that's like Shin Megami Tensei or Shin Lupon
It's
the Third.
Super Megami Tensei basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and then Evangelion was called Shinseki Evangelion, even though it wasn't the sequel to anything.
No, but it went like the new gospel or some shit like that. So it makes sense that they would use it. But anyway, would any of us watch a remake of Sweet Home if it were well made? Like,
I don't
with
know. I feel like it's fine the way it is, and I feel like the effects would be
I
worse. I know you said
agree.
remade, but like, I don't trust the effects these days. Also, I need to bring up that uh, Neon Genesis Evangelion, like, they actually called it that because they meant to say Neo as a translation of Shin, like for new, and they fucked it up. So that's why there's neon in the title of that show.
oh, Japan.
It's like it should have been called Neo Genesis Evangelion, and they didn't really understand it, so it's called Neon
They
Genesis.
fucked up the Greek.
Yeah, Neon Genesis. Regenesis,
Neo Sweet Home.
Neo Sweet Home, Neo Lupin the Third. Oh god, they're making a Lupin the Third CG movie that looks amazing. Like I'm super hyped for it. But I got burned by the live action Lupin the Third movie.
Yeah, but like we were talking about Sweet Home, this movie would without the practical effects, it wouldn't be nearly as good. So we all agree CG
Mhm,
remake would be a bad
Yeah, it
idea,
would
right?
be god awful. Like it doesn't matter
agreed.
how good the CG is, it's never gonna be the same as like
It,
puppets and practical
yeah, because
effects.
I'm impressed by what they did with this movie. If it were CG, I wouldn't be
I don't
impressed.
know when they swapped out the actors for the props. Like I can't tell. I look at the movie, I'm like, did they really melt this old man?
Did they really reduce this old man to ash?
Can you imagine being an actor in one of those movies and they have to make like a million casts of your face and your arms and your hands to make like fake versions of you that melt?
You're
And you
just
have to like
watching
be on
yourself
set all
melt,
day. Yeah, and watch like some
and
guy
then
come out
you
with a
sit down to
flamethrower.
watch the movie, and you're melting on screen.
And you
Mm.
invite like your parents to come and watch you melt. Like, come on, mom, dad, I have a big scene coming up. And like you're not even in most of that scene because like
Uh,
by the first 10 seconds you've been replaced by like a prop that kind of looks like you.
oh boy. Would any of us star in a Sweet Home remake
I
if they
totally
kept
would.
the practical effects?
You think I wouldn't star in a movie if I was asked to? I think everybody would do that.
Well, it
And
depends on the movie.
I
If
think
it's
I could
gonna
do a better
be,
job acting than the Resident Evil actors, even if I'm not a professional. Like, let me try
But
and improve on Captain Wesker. Stop! Don't open that door. That's already better.
that is already better.
Like the bar's so low. And I think honestly, if you move to Japan, so many productions just hire whoever that can speak English. Like it's so obvious that they just got hired because they were a random like foreigner walking by. I
Mhm.
feel like if I just stroll back and forth in front of Japanese film studios, I'll eventually get a part in something.
You get a part in Shenmue 4.
I'm looking for sailors. And it's like he has to follow like 50 leads to figure out that maybe sailors hang out at the docks.
Imagine a Resident Evil as a Shenmue title. You have to. Where are the zombies? Have you seen Umbrella? Where's Plant
Honestly,
42?
because Silent Hill is already kind of like that. Have you seen A Little Girl? God,
It
Plant
really is. It
42.
really is.
See, Plant 42 was an accident, but it looks like they built Plant 43 on purpose.
I think they did.
And in Resident Evil
Yeah.
Remake, or Resident Evil 2 Remake, you make a new type of V-Jolt to kill Plant 43.
Well, it wasn't a vigil. It was a serum, wasn't
It
it?
was a UMB number 20, and V-Jolt was UMB number 16, right? So,
Oh, I see.
but actually, in the remake, V-Jolt was UMB number 20. So it was straight up V-Jolt again.
Well, back to Sweet Home. I would buy a Blu-ray.
Oh, and the title, it says "Home Sweet Home" on one of the frescoes at the beginning.
Mhm.
Oh, and weirdly, like, they kinda rely on you knowing about frescoes for one scene, because like, you can't just change your pattern halfway through with a fresco, and it's because 'cause you're painting on plaster that hasn't dried yet. You have very limited time to finish a fresco. That's why it was so strange that he apparently changed what he was painting halfway through and did it without a plan.
Good to know.
Yeah, you need a little bit of art knowledge for that. Not very much.
I don't think it really improves on the skeleton man getting melted though.
Well, yeah, but it's like that's why those paintings were so freaky, that he apparently did it without a plan, even though it's a fresco, and you have to paint those quickly before the plaster dries. Also, you can't sell a fresco, it's part of your fucking wall, so I don't know what he was planning to do with that.
I think it was just for the arts.
It's like they just take a vacuum cleaner to the paintings, that's their restoration.
All right. So as far as ratings, what are we giving Sweet Home? I already said 7.5 from
I
my part.
might give it just a straight 7.
Yeah,
It's like
same.
I was
It's definitely
bored
a
by a lot of
7.
it, I didn't really like the characters, but my god, the effects. And it's like, I think the closest comparison I would say is probably like Evil Dead 2, because that movie like lives and dies by its cool effects.
Oh, I mean, Ash Williams is more memorable and
And that is the
charismatic.
thing, like Ash is a character that I love.
Yeah,
Everyone else
he
is
puts it over the
disposable
top,
cannon fodder.
and they are disposable cannon fodder in that first and second film. Not until the third one do they have anybody else survive,
Yeah.
and that's
Like,
because it became a Monty Python parody almost.
that was so strange where they went, and it was originally gonna be called The Medieval Dead, and it's like, oh, that makes sense now. But
Could you imagine Sweet Home starring Ash Williams?
I would love that. Be like, well,
That'd be
hello,
great.
Mr. Fancy Pants.
Ash Williams versus Home Sweet Home or something. Oh, that'd be great.
I mean, they made a Resident Evil ripoff that was an Evil Dead game, and like you saved with tape recorders instead of typewriters, and instead of ink ribbons, you used tapes.
I mean,
Which,
I wouldn't mind playing it just to see how it is. I played Evil Dead Regeneration, but in that one you have a little you have a dwarf uh voiced by Sam Raimi's brother, and you can kick him at enemies.
wow, Sam Raimi's brother is just down for whatever.
Pretty much is.
So I'm like Evil Dead, like that. There was one video game a super long time ago. Oh, in straight up 1981 apparently. Oh, 1984 on the friggin' Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. There was an Evil Dead game,
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
then nothing until 2000, and that's when the one that was a ripoff of Resident Evil
And
came out.
unfortunately with Sweet Home we only ever got that one RPG.
Yeah, well, you gotta get the rights. It's the same thing with Doki Doki Panic. Like, it was a tie-in game, and they never bothered to negotiate rights.
Same thing with Parasite Eve. That was based on a novel and a movie. And it was
Mhm.
actually a sequel to the novel.
What
And
about Parasite Eve 2, or what
2
was that one?
2 was original, and then by the time they did the 3rd one, they lost the rights and Square Enix didn't wanna pay, that's why it was called Third Birthday.
But it was actually a Parasite Eve game.
Yeah, they had the same characters and everything, but it was a bad Parasite Eve game, sadly.
Oh, that's too bad.
Alright, well, let's, wanna call it on the cast?
Yeah, let's say goodbye. Everybody
Yeah,
stay classy out there.
yeah, go watch Sweet Home, play Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Alright. Any other
Alright.
thoughts?
Nope,
No, the
that's
game is
pretty much it.
amazing. Definitely play it.
And the
Maybe play the remake.
movie's good.
Well, the Sweet
Yeah.
Home's good. I don't know if the Resident Evil movie's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, Sweet
I haven't
Home is
seen
a
it.
good film.
Apparently,
Live action's terrible.
it's got just like a naked woman running around the whole time, and I'm like, is that enough to get me to watch it? Because like we have Google now. If I want to see a naked woman, I can just. Or actually, wait a second. I have a fiance, so I don't even need that. But anyway, I feel like I don't need to watch the movie. Maybe if I was a 13-year-old boy
If you went back in time, yeah.
and we didn't have an internet connection, but we had Resident Evil on VHS, sit there and rewind it over and over again.
Alright, well, goodbye, everybody. See you
Goodbye,
next time.
everybody. So long.
Bye.